Hello, everybody. Welcome in. I hope you're having a good Monday. I almost forgot what day of the week it was. Uh, Welcome back to Writer's Block. We are joined here today by obviously Omni, who is our consistent host, and that gamer Ajax. Ajax, would you like to introduce yourself? Tell the folks in the audience what you do, what you like to do.
Yeah, sure. My name is Andrew. I go by That Gamer Ajax. I make YouTube content, largely trying to teach people about a variety of tabletop games. I've been playing now for 7, 8 years, I think. And I started branching out from D&D like a couple of years ago, and decided that hey, like sometimes it's intimidating to like find something new. So I'm just going to like teach you guys how to do that. Other than that, I do tips and tricks, guides on a wide variety of systems, first impressions, basically you name it. I'm trying to do it with that, just because I love tabletop games and I want more people to share in my love for it.
Right on, man. That's a great intro. Let me swap some audio stuff around real quick. Audience can't hear you. Say something awful. No, never mind. They can hear you now. Okay. They said horrible, heinous stuff about Skag. Yeah, well, oh yeah, I have the. I'll obviously let Omni reintroduce himself, of course.
All right, just once again, of course, replug this in because it got twisted. Hello, everyone. I'm the Last Stone Detective, your favorite robot American, and the co-host of this show with the lovely Redemption VA, who can do his own intro. Yeah, you guys can catch me on my own channel a couple times a week. I'm getting back to streaming starting this Saturday, so tune in for the Stellar Forge, where I build worlds with art as opposed to our words here. And yeah, Red, take it away, buddy.
Hey, thanks, boss. I'm not doing an intro. If you don't know who I am, you're living under a rock. JK. I love you guys. I unironically said JK. So let's.
Oh God, that sucks.
So instead of my intro, let's go to the rules. Go ahead and get right into it. And as the tradition goes, I like to start with the guest for the very first word.
Okay. So I have my very extensive list that I've obviously been working on for hours. Not really. First word that I have is miasma.
Miasma.
Ooh, I love that word.
Oh, that's Death Guard vibes. So what was your reasoning? What was your inspiration behind that?
So the funny thing about it is it's actually from another tabletop game that I play, but like it's usually like a really big deal there, and I'm like, okay, that could be fun, and I feel like there's not enough kind of like gas style like effects going on in Worlds, and I'm thinking that there's a lot that you could do with it, whether it's like like it could be a weaponized thing, it could be natural disaster. I feel like there's a lot that we can play with in terms of world building, whether it's a like a really dangerous area or if it's a dangerous threat from some country. I don't know. I thought it would be really fun to play with.
You're making me so happy. You're making me so happy over here. I love that one.
I like big old AoEs, especially big old like stinky AoEs, because miasma, however you want to pronounce it, it always gives me vibes of like stink, filth. I guess that's because I'm used to like miasma pestilence from Warhammer, obviously talking about Death Guard, but yeah, no, I really like that word, and it gives me like the AoE vibes, and AoE makes me think of bards and paladins. So.
Okay.
All about.
I love that.
I guess. Omni, you can go.
All right, thank you. Appreciate it. I was gonna like, do we got a Rochambeau for this, or like? All right. I got my awards. I kind of been sitting on a bank of these for the past couple sessions, so like I was like, I'm not sure what I'm going to do today, and I pulled out the bank, and there we go. So, first word. For the record, I'm just going to give like a prop to you for miasma because I was going to pull out smoke, but we're not using that one today. Today we are using siege. So.
Okay.
Make an ass out of myself. Okay, I was gonna say, oh, watch me misspell siege. Okay, so what's your inspiration behind siege? I mean, it's pretty blatant with what the setting is like, but
Yeah, like obviously our setting is kind of a pre-World War One terrible Great War style war with terrifying things in it, but beyond like the obvious military siege as well, there's like psychological siege effects as well. And this is a world that it is constantly at war. So I think it's not too far to say, like, at the very least, if it's not constantly war, it is a world torn apart by war. So the siege mentality, beyond just like the actual act of siege, which I'm super interested in this setting, as someone who loves that kind of crunchy stuff. But beyond that, the psychological effect on a populace of like, yeah, we're at war. What kind of war? Oh, we're at war with everybody. Like literally, just throw a dart on the map. We're angry at them for some reason,
Okay.
and I love that sort of vibe. And I'm interested in talking about that a little more, seeing how that affects the mindsets of these cultures.
absolutely, yeah. When I think of siege, I think of siege weaponry and stuff like that, and all the goofy stuff people have come up with over the centuries, like siege ladders. It's like, oh, that sounds so intimidating. It's just a big freaking ladder, and all these sorts of inventions that have been made just for the pure purpose of breaking into cities and stuff like that. So I really like
it's where all the engineers go to play during war. Like you have the guys who make tanks, you have the guys who make guns, and you have the guys who make siege weapons, and they're the ones who are absolutely cracked out of their minds, making insane stuff.
Yeah, you
got people like, you sure we can build that? Like, I did the math. Theoretically,
you could build it.
All the iron in Europe, we could build one.
Da Vinci was a known siege weapon crafter. He liked making some absolutely bizarre stuff. Also, one of the first known design for a tank. So,
yeah,
which was weird. It's a weird design because the wheels move in opposite directions, so it wouldn't move correctly. So they think he did that on purpose.
The helicopter was cool. His helicopter was cool.
Oh yeah, like the gyrocopters and like the thopters and stuff like that.
Yeah, that thing is awesome.
Yeah, no, that's I like siege a lot. Also, it just made me think. So Leonardo da Vinci, one of his inventions, like for counter siege, was he made like a fake brick like battlements, and what you would do is there'd be a big lever, and the bricks would push out and push the ladders down, like some sort of like
like Looney Tunes-esque.
No, like Playmobil, like an action function on like a Playmobil like toy set. You know what I mean? That's the vibe that gives me. It's just so funny. What a waste of time and money. Like just push the freaking things back. That being said, when you got 6, 7, 8, probably upwards of a dozen men on a ladder, it's not really easy to do.
And that ladder itself, those things are like 30, 40 feet tall. They can weigh hundreds of pounds. That ain't easy to shift. Especially if they got hooks at the top, which a lot of them did. So, yeah. That's when you get the guys with the blunderbusses over and like, I hope we can clear that. So
I like that Da Vinci might have intentionally made siege weapons that didn't work because he hated war. Yeah, we don't really know why he made weapons that didn't work. He purposely made them where they didn't work. So anyway, we don't know why, but yeah, it definitely could be he hated war, but especially considering a lot of his great works were destroyed in conflicts and stuff like that. So,
oh man.
So, my first word is, let's see, which of these two do I want to pick first? Okay, so I'll pick the boring word first, and then I'll do the really cool one second, because you're like, whoa. Okay, so burden is my first word.
Okay.
Ooh, burden.
So
I like that one.
when I thought really long and hard, and like I went to the mountains to seek sage advice on the word burden. Burden can mean a lot of things. It's just like you're having to deal with something, some sort of like disability or something like that. You're dealing with other people. You have a mantle. You're a champion of something. Your burden is to take care of people. Your burden is to do this. Your burden is to do that. It's like a task, but it's obvious. Burden has the implication that it is a task that you do not want to do, but you have to do, and it's like a duty, like a righteous kind of thing. So burden gives me paladin vibes. It's just like, my burden is to protect the crown at any cost, like that sort of vibe. So it makes you wonder how many. When I'm thinking about this, since it's like as we were saying, this is like a World War One, pre-World War One, like Victorian sort of age of. Probably there's a lot of nationalism going on, like without a doubt.
Mm-hmm.
So it makes you wonder how many soldiers are there that genuinely see this is like a good burden to like undertake, is like defend this country or like fight for this country, and well, what comes of that.
Yeah. Well, if I can, I'm also just thinking that the fact that like this already seems like it's going to be kind of like a very like war-torn world. Like there's also just the burden of the fact that like you have to wage war. Like it's not something that necessarily you might want to do. It's something that you have to do in order to survive.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a must. You don't have a choice. It's just these people that are way up higher up above you already made that decision that you're going to go this place. It's just like, well, you don't have a choice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for the follow, actual deer ooze. I love that. It's like a little ooze with antlers.
Okay, I recognize deer ooze. Saw you around on the Discord. Nice.
Oh yeah. So we have Miasma, Siege, and Burden. I think that is back around to Ajax.
Yeah, so I was just like, okay, I'm getting some Grimdark vibes, so we're gonna go real Grimdark. Ice is the next one that I've got.
Oh. Very, very cool.
I see what you did there.
Ha! I lost 3 viewers.
That's how you can tell how good a joke is. The inverse number of viewers will leave. It was a 3-star joke, Red.
I have a record. Anyway, what's your inspiration behind Ice?
Well, this is partially just from like selfish reasons, because like I have wanted to do like a winter or ice themed like campaign for a long time. So I'm just like, maybe this can like help me lay some of the foundation or like get some inspiration like in order to incorporate that. But then like also just like looking at like some of the other words that we've chosen, like this one definitely like solidified for me, where it's like we've already got Miasma, we have Siege. Like, okay, so like why are they fighting? Maybe it's like a global thing. Like it's fighting for resources, world's freezing over, and I just thought that could be something really fun to play with.
I kind of like that.
I like it a lot because it makes you think about like ice is. It makes me generally think about like what is the state of like what's the word I'm looking for, like it's just like what does the world look like? Are we entering an ice age? Is there massive global warming going on? Probably not, because there's less. People
it'd be all the more reason for them to go to war, right? Like if the north and the south are starting to freeze up. Wasn't there Call of Duty that did that? And it was like one of the best idea, or like Battlefield. It was one of the 2 of those, I think. Help me out, Chad. I haven't played a Battlefield game in so long, but I swear there was one where it's like, with like the polar ice caps are melting, and everyone's like, well, we better get going if we want to live. So, but I like that kind of idea. That idea.
Skag said reverse Dune. That's really funny. No, I mean I like the idea of like that's a really interesting concept. The idea of like there's a very brutal cold front moving in. It's like that really shitty movie Day After Tomorrow.
Oh God.
Have you seen that? It's
so bad. I haven't thought of that movie in like 15 years.
All I can think of are the CGI wolves. So I like to imagine there's just like not a cold front that'll literally instantaneously kill or freeze anything as it comes, but it's killing wildlife and stuff like that, and it's like completely changing the I keep thinking of the ecosystem. It's completely changing the ecosystem to the point where people are like, we have to move south and take other people's land, or our people will just freeze to death because we're not built for this sort of environment. We didn't prepare for this sort of winter. So I like the idea of ice in that regard. A siege because of ice.
Yep.
That sort of thing. I like that. I like that a lot. Good word. Simple word, but it's a good word. There's elegance and simplicity.
There we go.
Omni, your second word.
Yeah, okay. I really, really like ice. Like, I'm not gonna lie, my mind is now flashback. I'm looking at one of the pieces of concept art I'm doing for this setting, and it looks like it could be made out of Legos. And my mind immediately, when you said ice, I'm like, oh, it's Ice Planet. It's Ice Planet
No.
2002. Yeah. Everyone loves those glowing orange chain swords.
They're cool, so.
They are. I'm going to go with, let's add on to that, steel. I'm going to add steel to the mix.
Steel. S-T-E-E-L? Like
Correct.
metal?
Yeah, steel is in the material, not as in the act of theft. Although, honestly...
I'm going to steal your ice.
You're just steal all your ice.
I'm
Take
gonna
your
go into
ecosystem.
I'm going to go into your refrigerator and take all of your ice.
But yeah, no, I was thinking about this. Again, this is one of the words from the word bank. And when I was initially considering putting this in, I thought about it and I was like, how often do we talk about the concept of warfare weaponry, but we abstract it so far from what it is? Like, the practicality of it is your average British musketeer did not care what his musket was called. Like, absolutely did not care what mark or make or who made it. They just cared, does it work? How do I use it? And then as soon as I'm done with it, I'm probably going to just make sure it's maintained and not bother with it. I know that there was numerous times in the Revolutionary and Napoleonic Wars where some forts would literally fire their muskets once and then just leave them there. And they've called it proving. They just prove the muskets once. They'd be like, okay, don't fucking touch those till we actually have a battle. Any of you messed it up. And so for me, I like the idea of let's get into the idea of the weapons of this setting. Not just what we would imagine the easy stuff is, but how the weapons are treated. Is there mythology around these things? Is it as mythologized as some of the guns and some of the weapons of our era? How many people swear by the Thompson machine gun? But the Tommy gun's been out of production effectively for 50, 60 years now?
Around 60.
Give or take?
Yeah.
So swords. How many people we all have magic swords in our fantasy settings. But man, for your average person back then, it was just a thing you stab people with. You can get a master sword from someone brilliant
In Europe.
Yeah.
Europeans did not give a shit about their weapons. They just threw them into the river whenever they were done with them.
Yeah, no, you literally just you get whatever crude piece of iron can hold an edge long enough to kill someone, and then you're done. But man, wouldn't you think about that from King Arthur? So let's explore that weaponry on an abstract and a practical level. And steel is just my word for it.
Yeah, absolutely. And steel is a very important part of building as well. The refinement process and stuff like that just made so we can build these little 2 or 3 story buildings, cool, and why don't we make them 50? It's okay. So my second word, also chat, I'm going to continue the tradition of letting you guys pick my third word, not because I'm lazy, but never mind. So just pick my third word. So I have a cool word that I think you'll like.
Ooh.
It is, excuse me, megalography.
Oh man, that's
now we're getting fancy.
Yeah, this is my fancy word for the evening. This is the so this would be megalography is depiction of legends. So giant things, grand heroes, gods. We were just talking about making mythology behind weapons. Here we go. So the whole idea of just raising these people up, raising a person of legend up on a platform, gods up on platforms. It's very much megalography is the statues of the Roman and Greek pantheon, so that would be considered megalography. Anything that depicts godly or revered figures, so paintings of Christ, paintings of saints, those sorts of things. Even to some extent, Hieronymus Bosch he did some strange megalography, but he sure did megalography. But
he did a lot, that's for sure.
Hi Neris, what's up? Thunderstorm? Yeah, we do got a thunderstorm going on here. Thank you. I like megalography. That was a word I was I went on to a weird word generator, and I was just clicking rapidly. I'm stop. I like that word. So
perfect.
Yeah, the art or depiction of legendary figures or stuff like that, and I feel that's perfect for this setting. especially considering we're in an they're kind of entering an age of like there's a lot of doubt about like like the future of their own countries. So having like an image or something to look up to is a very important thing in humanity. Just being a human being, we always need something to look up to, or things or someone. So why not make like this legend of the country? He's single-handedly slaying the entire army by himself with a butter knife. You know what I mean? Just like go wild with it, right? But
only him and his entrenching tool, Steve.
Only him and his dental floss.
Yeah,
he won the war single-handedly. But no, but I just think that's a good word for this setting. But
yeah, no, definitely, that's a great one.
And this will be the last round of words, and like I said, folks in chat, please pick my last word. As you've seen here, you just pick a one word, and you think it'll be good for world building, by all means. But without further ado, back to Ajax for his final word.
Okay, so I had a couple, and then I just thought of this one actually. Underground.
Oh no.
Yes.
It just seems like it seems like we're gonna go with like that war-torn society, and I just feel like if things are freezing over on the surface, why not dig into the ground?
Sappers digging. I love it. I'm all about it.
Oh boy, I can't wait till we have our German labyrinthian, just a freaking giant bunker. It's just like, oh, there's a bunch of ants in there. It's like, oh well, they lost the war, but nobody ever broke into the labyrinth. And then they collapse the whole thing.
The ants all seem to have muskets.
See, I had two thought processes there. I was either going to go in the sky or underground. And I was like, no, underground seems to make a little bit more sense for this. Go a little bit more grounded, literally.
Dig it. Well, I don't know why you said underground, and I thought, remember the movie Holes?
My mind went right to Undertale. I'm like, okay, that's the more that's the better one, Red. You got the better one.
I read the book. It was alright. Remember when they're eating raw onions?
Oh god, yeah.
That was a mistake I made once.
Fun fact: for the movie, those were actually apples.
Yeah, they painted them with like food safe dye. They painted them purple. Really cool. Underground. Yeah. Anyway, our setting is now the like futuristic
it's just Metro. It's just Metro.
It's like a Metro version of
Metro.
Oh no.
Oh lord.
Oh god.
No, I like underground. That's a good word. Well, and it makes you think about not only just like living, like how they're going to be like habitually living, but also just like what kind of tactics do they use, like, and what tactics do they use to survive or to fight. It's just like underground's like I was joking about the German labyrinthian, but I mean that was an actual thing. They dug these really complex series of tunnels that only the Germans knew about at the time, and the Allied forces they never broke in. They never could. It was just way too complex, and they just like fuck it. So, yeah.
You can make an impenetrable bunker, but if you bury it, it doesn't do any good.
Tremors?
Unfortunately.
What was Tremors, that movie where they had like a volcano in New York City?
No. That was actually Volcano.
That was
Tremors
Volcano?
is the one with the worms.
Yeah, it's like the worms with Kevin Bacon, I think.
Yeah.
I just remember the fucking volcano movie. The guy falls into the lava. And he's like, ah! He's just like hands up. And
You're
he's
thinking of
standing
the one with I can't remember the name of the actor, but the guy who played K, like from Men in Black. You're thinking of that one.
Oh my god.
That one was. I think that's Volcano, and it is objectively terrible.
It's so funny though.
No, Tremors is the one with Kevin Bacon and Bert, the single best depiction of a prepper in fiction ever.
Oh.
And like the one prepper from fiction I'd actually want to fucking know in person because he seems like it'd be fun. And I remember in the third one, they didn't just have worms; they had ass blasters. When they learned how to fly by farting. I'm not even joking. That's what they called them.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, Red, you need to watch those movies. They're so good. They're so fucking good.
They're so cheesy though.
They're perfect.
They're like perfect. The best like pulp sci-fi survivalist thing that you will ever see.
Put it on Halloween. It's the perfect thing for Halloween. It really is.
You know what? I'll take you guys' word for it until Halloween. How's it?
I'm gonna go with torch as my word.
Torch.
Yeah. Honestly, like I feel like we're in that kind of vibe now. So we have underground, we have sieges, we have ice, and I'm sort of like I'm just thinking of like just that torchlight kind of like glow Like I'm getting this imagery in my head. It's mostly just for the imagery effect of like there is light, but it is all torchlight. Like the sky is mucked up with garbage, miasma, gas, clouds, it's stormy. If you're at night, it's night. If you're underground, the only thing lighting your way is the orange glow of a torch. If you're in a fortress, the only thing that illuminates over the edge of the wall is a torch. And I love that kind of imagery, that gas lamp, or even before like gas, even after gas lamp, just like burning oil, orange light. It's very primal. It's not normal light, and it really sets the tone for me. So even if we don't use this word, I'm just putting that imagery in there.
Yeah, no, I love it.
We've seen some really good ones out of the chat too. I'm keeping track.
Yeah, so we have so Skag said Legacy or Puppeteer. Puppeteer. See, when I think of Puppeteer, I think of Marionette, which I believe is just the same thing.
Marionette is the thing that they use. Puppeteer is the person.
Really?
Yep.
Oh, Marionette's like the wooden.
Yeah, Marionette's the actual puppet, and the puppeteer is the person using the puppet.
Chronic. Inscription. Yeah, y'all ever play Inscription? Sorry, that's completely off topic. Really fun game.
I've seen it played a lot. If my PC wasn't literally a cardboard box that thinks somehow.
Buddy, that game looks like a cardboard box. It will run well on your PC, I promise. it could run on a potato. It could run on something from like 93. You'll be totally fine.
All right, I'll give that a shot then.
It's just a really simple card battle game. It's fun. Chronic could be cool. I like Chronic. Well, we can always come back to these prompts too.
I'm writing them all down. I leave nothing behind.
I like Inscription too. Oh.
Yeah,
Chronic's the one that's sticking out to me, though, to be fair.
See, I think of the Chronic whenever I hear that. So
hooked on Chronics.
So, well, Red, it's your third word. Didn't you say they need to choose it? So we can visit them now.
Chronic.
I just love that there's no preamble. It's just Chronic. Like, okay, you know what? Yeah.
Yep.
I like that.
Folks in chat, please continue to submit stuff and what have you. Omni is penning them down.
I will miss nothing.
He misses nothing.
Don't prove me wrong, chat.
He misses nothing. He misses.
Someone sneaks up behind me and stabs me. Then you all get to make the wah wah sound on chat.
Yeah, just wah, wah, wah. So. Okay, so we're to the portion of the show where we are going to each select two of these words that we like a lot, and we're going to condense those down into one nice little world-building package. So, whomever would like to start, but I would like to see Ajax pick his two words first.
Okay, so I'm thinking steel and megalo. I can't even pronounce that. Yeah,
megalography.
That's the one. Yeah.
Megalovania. Let's go.
Yeah.
I was hoping I could go the night without having da in my head.
It's so good. I've heard like this amazing like rock cover, and I'm just like, this has no right to be as good as it is.
Toby Fox music. What can I say? Like, you can say whatever you want about the games that they're in, but like the music's always a banger. Like the best part of the newest Pokemon was the fact that Toby Fox did the music.
Oh, I had no idea about that.
Wait, really? He did?
Yes, he did. Like, wow. Okay, the last two songs on it, Area Zero and the Professor Battle, or what the two of them are called, seriously, give them a listen. They are fucking bangers. They also have no spoilers in it. It's just really good.
I still need to play Undertale. It's one of those games I need to.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, it's one of those games you can experience, but if you've already watched a playthrough like I have... I
haven't watched a playthrough since like high school. Okay, so.
Okay, so my logic with this, and I literally like as soon as you mentioned that, and you had mentioned like ways to like combine it with steel, I was instantly thinking of a sword saint, actually.
Ooh.
Like I don't know if that would be the hero of a nation. I don't know if it'd be like the first person, like the first legendary swordsman. I was just thinking that could be something really fun to play with, especially if you have like these original like well-known warriors that first like they may have developed the ways of like producing steel into making weapons, and then they all receive like some kind of title associated with them.
So kind of like the metal version of a Rice Kingdom, kind of.
Yeah.
I kind of like that, actually. Like, it isn't, oh, I have a farm, and thus you all need to live with me because I make the food. It's, I have weapons, and if you want to
Either like
live,
I
you
have
need
weapons, or like I advance technology, so that way like we can move forward, kind of situation.
Okay.
Or they might have been like named saints because they like developed some way of like utilizing their resources in different ways. So obviously you would have like a sword saint that could be like, obviously like a well-known warrior. Like I feel like there's a lot of potential there for us to come up with some really creative stuff.
Hell yeah.
You have me at sword sight. I really like I really in a satirical way. I like the glorification of like war and stuff like that in a satirical way, because the whole idea is just like I like Warhammer, so that should I mean that should say enough. I like the emphasis of just like, yeah, sure, when you're fighting war for a genuinely good cause, just like, great. When has there ever been a war other than World War II that was like, in the past 70 years, let's say that, in the past 70, when has there been a war that's actually worth fighting? When have we actually like fought evil? So the idea of like actually having like satirical like people fighting against bad guys is like, that feels good. That always feels good. I mean that's the whole idea of sword and shield fantasy anyway. It's just like being able to take up and fight for a good cause. But the idea of sword science is really fucking cool for that reason. Somebody like, yeah, you're saying people that developed the technology, people that developed ways to fight with these weapons and stuff like that, and like the manuals. That's one thing that folks forget about a lot, is that somebody had to fucking live through a bunch of these fights to record down what they did. They're like, I did this during this fight, and that's why I'm only missing my left ear. So,
I still have these 3 fingers. We're good.
We
are walking away. Limping.
I don't know what you
away.
mean, how I figured out how to hold a sword and use the blade as a handle. It was easy. I have no issues with it at all.
No, but I really like sword sight kind of vibes, because yes. Legendary hero with a sword, but that's just like all like religious iconography, that megalography, like all surrounding them. It's just like, that's rad. That's very Sigmar-esque if you like Warhammer Fantasy.
It is.
I'm just getting into it. I've started playing like Vermintide with a couple of friends, and I'm like, okay, now I need to know more. This is gonna be my new obsession.
Vermintide's hella fun. I need to stream that more often.
It's really fun. It is really fun.
The chat fucking with me and Derek was the best part of that stream. Ajax was good to me. Well, do you want to pick your 2 words?
Absolutely. And also,
that's not one of the words.
I'm glad I took my glasses off so you can see the disdain in my face clearly. I'm going to go with 2 words that I like. The one I was going to choose for mine is on there, so thank you for grabbing Steel. I'm going to go with miasma and ice. Those are so good. I love both. Like, just
Stinky ice.
Absolutely out there. I love those words.
Stank drank, as it were.
For me, I think it's because you guys know when I'm building worlds, the first thing I do is I'm designing a character or a faction or a nation or something in it. And immediately those 2 vibe with me so fucking hard. And I want them in here. But even beyond that, it's such good imagery. And there's so many cool possibilities for this setting. I love the idea of the weather. I love the idea of the ice. Even if it's just like a localized thing. The imagery of people trudging miserably across muddy hoarfrost is such a powerful image of war. Like, hell, I mean, you want the guys in like the stuffy like ballistics trench coats. That's the kind of weather that gets you wearing a big ass trench coat in the middle of a war. So, just throwing that out there. That's me. What do you think, Red? What do you got?
Personally, big coat fan. Big coat fan.
As a Floridian, I've always wanted to wear them. Now I can.
As a Missourian, I can wear them 3 times in the summer and then like maybe 30 times in the winter. So I hate the weather here. So it is so warm.
There we go.
So let's see.
Thank you, Skag.
Yeah, fucking smart. I'm gonna take Siege as one of them.
Ooh, yes.
I got a lot of good choices.
We do. We're absolutely drowning in them. They're good stuff.
An embarrassment of riches, so to say.
I'm just gonna come to you guys the next time I need to do some world building, just in general.
Hey, you
Hey,
just
man,
let me
we're
know.
here.
I'm good at pitching ideas.
Yeah.
I've written 2 books and in the process of editing a 3rd one. I'm running out of ideas. Don't talk to me.
I'm just starting my
show.
first setting. You can come to me.
By all means, yeah, go to Omni. I am like an empty tube of toothpaste. I'm rolling out that last little
I'm an
bit
old
of
man.
stuff.
I'll just invite you to play in the world. Problem solved.
Yeah,
You
perfect.
There
get to
you
just
go.
appreciate it. You don't have to build it.
And then I can steal all of your shit and then use it in my own.
Exactly.
I can run.
Delightfully devilish, Seymour.
God damn it! I didn't think you were gonna have that reference. I didn't think steamed clams was gonna enter this, but here we are.
I can get crusty bacon disguised as my own cooking. Delightfully devilish, Seymour. I'm gonna take Underground. That's my last word, by the way.
Okay.
I like the idea of like these guys in these big ass ice tunnels and they're like moving around trying to like be as quiet as possible, and there's like these little drips in the cave that are just echoing, and then there's all this like tenseness, like Gendy Tartakovsky like tenseness building up, you know, and then like it comes out of nowhere. It's not even like a hard hit. It's just like it's a hit hard enough to where it'd be like, oh shit. And you see like you hear guns echoing through these like ice chambers and everything's rattling, and then there's an avalanche, and I'm fucking going on a rant. But you
No, dude, that is such a huge that is a huge aesthetic vibe.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
that's the vibe for this kind of setting, really.
Ajax was saying you wanted something like snowy and like wintry, and like that's exactly what comes to mind. It's just like foraging through these like 3 foot, 5 foot tall snow drifts. Like I'm talking like Buffalo, New York type like snow drifts, and you know there's just mist. It's just like you don't know who's the enemy and who's the ally because there's just all this blizzard flying by, and you're just like hoping you don't accidentally shoot Frank or something. So. Yeah, no, I really love that stuff. I wrote down Sword Set as a separate note because I like that so much.
It is really cool. I love that. That word combo is such a powerful one too.
Absolutely. Underground Siege. We go underneath the city and then drill holes until we just sink it.
I mean, that's the thing. In medieval warfare, there was like even before modern warfare, which is when we mostly think of sappers, but like the concept of sapping was medieval. Originally, they would have peasantry, and they would have sappers dig underneath a castle's walls and load them with either, if you know, when they had explosive, when they finally got around to getting that much, they could save the transport, they used explosive. But oftentimes, they would just undermine the walls. That's where the term comes from. Undermine. They would have a bunch of folks mine under the walls and just let the castle walls collapse into the ground.
Imagine your entire job is being dig dug, but for real.
I mean, absolutely. Unfortunately, you would die usually. Like, there's a reason. There's a reason why it was primarily medieval warfare. We don't hear about it for almost 100 years, and then it comes back because for about 100 years, no one was desperate enough to do that shit without a monarch pointing a sword at your back. And then World War One. So you know,
that's perfect.
Yeah, no, that's actually a reason why a lot of earthworks were dug in St. Augustine, as an example, in Florida where I used to live. There was a castle called the Castillo de San Marcos, which is still there, by the way. Like one of the oldest, I think it's the oldest castle in the U.S. It's one of the few castles. And in it, they have actual earthworks dug down. They have what's called a dry moat. The reason they have the dry moat is because if you were to try to undermine the castle, you would basically dig out and pop out into the moat, because any further down you're basically hitting just straight up limestone. And apparently a lot of castles did that kind of thing. Sapping is such a cool, terrifying like warfare style that every time it pops up, you're just like, theoretically, you're like, that's a cool idea. And then you think for just 5 seconds about doing it. And you're like, that is the most nightmarish shit imaginable.
Nope. A whole lot of nope on my end.
That sounds terrifying. I hope nobody in the audience is claustrophobic.
Oh, God. That was the worst thing I read about in World War II was that occasionally sappers would cross tunnels. which is why they had shotguns or pistols on their person.
That's terrifying.
Yeah, you might literally have just like a second or two before you're like, is that one of ours? Is that one of theirs? Before like they just collapse both tunnels.
My man just freaking digging into your trenches. It's like, where did he come from? He just like he went straight across no man's land, man. He just didn't see him coming.
Oh man.
But yeah, we can start picking words here and narrowing it down, as it were. If you have any of these, immediately jump to mind, if you have an idea, just run with it.
I mean, I'm gonna be honest, just because we have ice in miasma, I'm just wondering, like, if there were like frozen chunks of it and it was like kind of like embedded like within it, and that you use that as like defense. Like, if you know somebody's coming, you just send that flying down the hole after them.
I actually think it was Dylan who posted something about something like that earlier.
Yeah.
He's like, what if the miasma is frozen in the ice?
Yeah.
Like, what if it's like a chemical in there?
There's some I have an interesting proposition. This sounds like a whole idea for a campaign, but we're often finding like bacteria, like long dead diseases in like the bottom of lakes and stuff like that. So I mean, they found the literal bubonic plague at the bottom of a lake, and they're just like, oh, okay. So the idea that these guys know that there's a disease in the ice and they're literally just throwing it at their enemies.
Yeah.
That's horrible.
They could be boiling it to refine it.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh, sure, yeah.
Yeah, and that's why I was thinking that it could be something that's weaponized.
I love that. I mean, that gels pretty well with what we've got here. Like, that falls, I think, Red, that falls pretty firmly into the weird side of warfare.
Oh, yeah. Stank
Like,
ice, as they say.
Yeah. Like, I love that idea of just like, so, what's that ice? Like, oh, we don't drink that ice. We melt that ice into a slurry and we pour it into the sapper's holes. You're like, oh, God.
I love giving
horrible.
them diseases.
The thing, like, I'm already thinking, like, this is a terrible world, and I don't ever want to be there.
We've made a pretty thoroughly grimdark setting here, I think.
Which is hilarious. Like, usually that's not my vibe, but I'm just like, you know what? Let's go with it. Why not?
I love grimdark shit, so I don't like 5 minutes of midnight type grimdark stuff. I just like stuff that's just like, oh, that's grimdark. It's real. And that shit like this happened. So one of the biggest reasons they think that the bubonic plague, Black Death, spread so rapidly throughout Europe is because it would be the Huns at the time were attacking a city in China, which was a very populated trading port where like all people from all over came, especially Italians. And what the Huns were doing is they had infected corpses and they put them in like trebuchets and catapults and launched them over the walls. And the infection started spreading. They think that the Italian merchants fled the city and they took it back to Italy because one of the worst of the worst starts in Italy and then it spreads out over Europe. So that's one of the reasons they thought. I don't know if they ever confirmed that, but that is like one of the most widely agreed upon reasons Black Death was so rapidly spread throughout Europe. Just because whenever somebody would get Black Death, they're like, I should flee, I should go home, I should go to a different city. It's like, that's a bad idea.
I mean, honestly, that kind of thing was it was a notorious problem. Black Death was that it was the disease. That was just like, oh yeah, no, it
wiped out a third of the population of Europe.
It was perfectly positioned to take advantage of it. And honestly, like you mentioning that, like the bodies being shot, my mind immediately goes to Lord of the Rings. Return their prisoners to them. Like that scene.
Yeah.
One of the darkest moments in the whole damn series, and almost no one talks about it. 5 seconds on screen, they had that, and that was more than enough. I like that though. So we have miasma, like this terrible sickness or illness, and so I think we're talking about like a regiment or a region, where it's like a regionalized tool. I like the idea of the ice also being like an encroaching thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, because you mentioned that a little bit, the idea of like, the ice, if not an ice age, something coming in, that might be that particular nation's reason for declaring war. Because every nation has their reason. Like, we've established already that basically everyone hates everyone in this setting on a national level, and they were just waiting for a chance, and this is their chance. And so for them, if there's just like ice encroaching, this like brutal, ruthless winter killing all their crops and destroying their ability to make their lands arable, then you're absolutely gonna go full World War I, make an army and invade your neighbors if it's either that or starvation.
Yeah.
That's modern Viking strategy. Like, literally, we don't have the capacity to make everything we need here. We're going to go take it from somewhere else because that's the only way we're going to survive.
Yeah, and maybe like during like especially like early on in the wars, maybe that's where we start seeing these different like Steel Saints coming up from early victories and whatnot.
I would make them have like a real, actual deliverance vibe. Like, these people, maybe this is a cultural thing. Like, other nations might have the equivalents, but like, maybe they're called like sword saints because to them, these people are delivering them from this cold, delivering them from this famine.
Yeah.
So they're like plague doctors?
I'd say that seems fair.
They're kind of like plague doctors.
If they're weaponizing illness, then because we're obviously not talking like primitive weaponizing here. Like, when we're talking about it, we're talking
they know
about
what they're
more
doing.
fantastical now.
Yeah, they know what they're doing. Biological warfare and stuff like that. Spreading of diseases, which is obviously like evil as shit, but
I mean, yeah, like, you know,
it's desperate times though.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
I mean, we're literally talking about a setting where we've already decided that this setting is filled with these Titan weapons that are designed to, or that are trying to design them to engage in mass acts of war crimes. I think it's safe to say we can throw the morality up.
I mean, hey, the kingdom, not the kingdom, but the hegemony that decided that something is a war crime no longer exists. So
yeah,
there's
exactly.
no war crimes. It's just that's kind of fucked, man.
It's just war. Yeah, exactly.
It's kind of messed up, dude.
Just took the crime out of war. Ooh,
so
not in a good
there's
way.
No holds barred. It's free for all everywhere. So it's kind of like
it's actually the Tyranids is in the encroaching ice. Oh god.
Oh, no.
I mean, like, it can be multiple things too. Like, my mind sort of, when I think about this ice, I'm thinking of much as everyone hated the ending of a Game of Thrones and the way like the white. It's fine. I honestly watched all of 5 episodes. I got fed up with it, and then everyone else took the next couple of years to find out that they were fed up with it too. But I stayed apropos of it. In it, they get to you have this giant wall of ice. That's what there's literally an entire like volunteer faction of soldiers who are here to watch this giant ice wall. Because beyond that are tribes of wild folk and mythological threats like dragons and zombies and other terrible shit, giants. They just don't want in the lands of Westeros. But it's pretty much just like, it's not just that it's a miserable place out there. It's kind of like mythological Greenland. It's relentlessly hostile on the other side of that wall, in the ice, in the cold. So like, it's almost like a transformative or terraforming effect. If you lived in a place and the ice of the winter encroaches on it, now it's not just, oh, my crops won't grow and the weather sucks and we're going to starve or freeze. It's also like, what shit endures in this that's moved into town? Like, I'm not going to bring up Pizzly, but no, I'm going to bring them up. Pizzly bears. Let's talk about Pizzly bears for a second. Grizzly polar bear hybrids, which are actually a thing, which anyone who lives up north should actually be a little concerned about, because this is what happens when you drive polar bears out of their habitat.
They
go
called
south.
Are they called
breed
growler
with
bears?
grizzlies, and you get polar bear-sized grizzly bears.
I thought they're called growler bears. What the fuck? Pizzly? Is that what?
Apparently, both words are used. That's why I went with Pizzly, because I thought it was the stupidest
Pizzly.
thing. And because growler bear is too cool, and they're already terrifying. They need something. They need to be handicapped somehow.
Yeah, they're
that's
just
how you nerf their name.
They're like the white sugar powdered donuts of bears.
Yeah. Apparently, they're more belligerent than grizzlies and polar bears as well.
I would
like,
be too if I was that cool.
Yeah, like it's a cool concept, like, until you realize you live in that setting. Until it's like it's not world building that happens. But like, imagine what would exist in this setting, where you have diseases like this locked in the ice. Where we have openly in the last episode, I believe, made like terrifying monsters that are designed that literally hunt people down like cone snails and pull them out of tanks. Like, that's down south in the mud. Imagine what's up north in the cold.
God.
Pizzly bears, apparently. So I was thinking of coming up with a name for this like nation. There's got to be a nation that lives that's like said, "Fuck it, we're gonna try to like endure these conditions."
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I'm just trying to think of a name. I'm thinking like Northern European kind of vibes, so like Nordic kind of
Yeah.
stuff.
I mean, like we literally went to the Antarctic Circle. Why? We say science really just because it's there. That's really what it is. There is scientific reason, but it's because it's there. Trying to figure out the specifics while you're all discussing. We are discussing. We're it seems beginning a new faction in this setting, or like a new subsection of this setting. The words of steel, megalography, ice, miasma, siege, and underground in our terrifying, grimdark World War pre-World War One era setting. Wow.
Echoes of Iron.
Thank you. I was like, I know we had a name for it.
Yeah. So I'm thinking something like, what was his name I said? I have a bad habit of coming up with names that sound like a mouthful.
Perfect. Go ahead, hit us with it.
Christerland.
I like it.
Yeah, I can get behind that.
The Christerlandic people.
That certainly sounds good to me. I like it.
I am terrible with names, so I'll definitely be going with that.
I like it because if you told me that was actually a nation state on Earth at some point, I would not have batted an eye whatsoever. I'd be like, no, yeah, absolutely. Where were they?
And it does sound Nordic too, so.
I like the idea, and not Christerlandic because it's kind of boring. Christerlandites. It's like, oh, it's the Christerlandites. Them buggers, they don't play around, do you? Gotta throw in bug outs and diseases in people. It's not very good, eh?
Snot bombs.
Snot bombs. Naming things is hard. Naming things is one of my favorite parts. Sometimes it takes me a while, sometimes it like that, but
yeah. It depends. If you can get a good vibe going for what you're making, it's easier to name it, I find. But like, it can suck sometimes. It can really suck. I like the idea that maybe these Christerlandites, they've made this. They are from. So wait, do they live up in this cold, or is it they're the ones being crushed by this cold and thus invaded? Or is it both? Is it the same people at this point?
Maybe a mixture. I want to hear what Ajax thinks.
I really just like the idea of it's just like we're going to endure and we have a reason to endure. So I'm wondering if like that's where a lot of like the steel production like started. Maybe it's like that is where it's like we have a reason to stay. Like this is our heritage. Like we can't abandon it.
But the things that they have lost in the snow, they form a sort of like pillager-esque economy. So they go down south to take things from people, which would be the siege part. And they're just like, we're gonna take your stuff. We're not gonna kill all of you, but we will give you a disease if you stop us. And then
that's like the most brutal method of winning too. Like
literally just like spitting on people. I mean, who's to say that the Christerlandites aren't just immune to this? Like they've literally,
they might have vaccinated themselves.
Yeah, they put a little bit in their tea every day. It's just like, fuck it.
I mean, like I think about like the smallpox vaccine, where like we literally discovered, hey, if you had cowpox, smallpox ain't that bad, and so people just started getting cowpox. They literally would cut a cross in someone's arm, take a thing of the infected material, rub it on the cross, and that's where like the first vaccinations you see are like the big cross scar. That's why, because it would bleed a lot and it would allow them to cross-contaminate, and that's how you got smallpox immunity. They might not be perfectly immune to miasma, but maybe they found a variant disease that renders them some level of immunity.
Yeah.
dig it. So Ajax was talking about like they don't want to leave their lands because they're like sacred to them for some reason. Probably that tradition of like steel weapon making is probably like as you were saying is like a
or
is
there could just be good access to like iron ore and reserves in that area too. So that's part of the reason why they are having to stick there, because they have to keep their weapon of war moving. They have to continue this production because they have to keep going further and further and further to try to like bring supplies back.
That's kind of a desperate act, you know. It's just like, oh yeah, we were completely fine like 100 years ago, but with the coming like all this like glacial melting and like ice age coming towards us, we need to keep like like you said, reaching further and further out and having to get resources.
And also just a thought, if we're going with the environmental angle though, is that it could potentially be their fault. Maybe they discovered they had this, they figured out how to like refine it, and then with the amount of smog being produced, maybe they were the ones that triggered this.
That's a really cool idea. So like maybe they were an incredibly advanced society. They had all these like amazing advancements in science and stuff like that, but with the coming like glaciers like just moving towards them, they lost their main city. So they've had to revert to like more brutal tactics to survive.
Yeah.
So they've had to like downgrade like a couple centuries back into the like, well, I guess we're like killing and stealing from people again.
Yeah, maybe with the intention of like trying to like get and take it back somehow.
That's a really cool idea, like a very nationalist idea. Like it's a very conservative idea, but it's like the nationalist idea of like return to form, but they're never going to do that. They just try to sell to their people like, we'll be back to the day we used to be, and it's just like, no, you'll freeze to death before anything good
actual lords and ladies, we're never going back. That shit's gone. Like, but I really dig that. That has have either of you two ever played Frostgrave or heard of Frostgrave?
No, that's one I need to play. That's one that keeps getting recommended.
Really, really good, really fun. Also miniature agnostic and super cheap. Anyone out there who's interested in the little skirmish game, go look it up. Also the guy who makes it super chill. But in it, it's very much like an on-land Atlantis, where in the idea of it, in the idea of the setting, the city of Frostgrave was not always called Frostgrave. It's called Frostgrave because it was once the center of this massive magic-driven economy. It's basically on-land Atlantis. And then one day, one of the many, many wizards in the sprawling city magicians did the stupid thing, made a magic spell that brought limitless, brutal winter to the city and froze it over. And now it dominates the north. And the spell's just starting to fail centuries later. And adventurers just on the edge of the city's walls, frothing for when there's a little bit of like a pullback in the snow. It's going to run in and raid everything that's not nailed down. And like, while that is way more magical than what's in this setting, I do like the idea though of like a civilization that it stretched too far. Maybe it's not that they want to, like, obviously aspirationally they want to go back to take it over. But maybe at this point, it's really more of they want to plunder they want to plunder from the city the thing that will give them the right to remake their nation. Kind of like, imagine if, as a totally theoretical concept, Washington, D.C. froze over and we weren't able to get out our national monuments or national objects. Like, if you could get back there and get, say, original copies of the Constitution and the amendments, you basically are holding the primary documents of your nation in your hand.
Yeah.
Like, same kind of thing. They might have had to leave behind their equivalent of the Magna Carta and all the founding documents, or all the crown jewels, whatever be relevant for them. Thousands of years worth of learning and their equivalent of, like, the Library of Alexandria, whatever it might be, but it's buried in there.
Cool. Yeah, I really like that idea that just like, oh yeah, this city that used to be super technologically advanced, well, it's gone because we fucked up.
Our ancestors doomed the world, and we're the ones that having to just try to live.
That sounds like my generation. Jesus.
Well, hi,
Sounds like if Viking clans became more unified under one banner and decided to start using chemical warfare. Yeah, why not? That's really cool. It's fucked up, but it's cool for the setting and context. Obviously, I don't condone the use of chemical warfare, but I think
in this setting though, it's perfect.
They're just so desperate to win, you know, like.
And it's the tool. It's there,
it is
right?
the tool,
like,
yeah.
you know, you don't if you're If your nation doesn't have access to steel, you don't make swords, you make bows. If your nation has abundant access to wood, that's what you do. If your nation has abundant access to steel, you make armor and swords. That's how it goes. And they had ice and plague.
They seem like a nice group of people. They
Real
seem like really
personable.
nice, cool people.
I kind of like the idea that maybe they probably are. Like, within their culture, they're like within their culture, they're like this really warm, like, familial ties, kind of like we heard Vikings probably once again and again. They sound like it. And man, if Vikings were nothing if not inviting and welcoming to their communities, but like sucks for everyone else, kind of a deal.
Yeah, they literally only gave a shit about their own people, and I mean, to be fair, that you know, that's what made them so prominent, is because they looked after their own people. But,
Yeah.
obviously, yeah, just like let's enslave, pillage, destroy, burn. That's like, yeah, okay.
So
we've got steel, ice, and miasma down. We have megalography, siege, and underground left to do. Do you want to continue with this nation, or do we want to do something else? What are you guys thinking?
I'm wondering if so I know we've already like talked about the sword saint idea like a bit, but I'm wondering if that would be like an opposing nation, like maybe like whoever this sword saint was like the first one to get a major victory against them, and actually showed people that they can fight back. Like they don't have to just take this like laying down.
I like that.
I like the idea that he's like the first thing. One of my favorite things from history is the Leper King Baldwin. I'm not sure if you know about him.
About to.
So
It was wonderful.
he was a king of Jerusalem, and if you ever played Darkest Dungeon, that's what the leper's based off of. So he wore a mask, and it was said he actually fought in wars with leprosy. Like, he was literally falling apart, and he would still go out to like oversee wars and stuff like that with a weapon in hand. He was kind of a bad. I mean, obviously, there's all sorts of messed up shit about him, but he was badass. I mean, so I like the idea that this sword saint was infected with this miasma, and he said, "Fuck it, I'm gonna keep fighting until I literally die and like cannot walk anymore from this disease overtaking me." And I think he would be the first sword saint. It's just like our lord of sickness or something like that.
Yeah.
I do like that. That's very cool. And I did just read up on him. Yeah, Baldwin the Fourth. Man, what a badass. Literally learned how to ride a horse despite having leprosy and fight on horseback. Despite losing feeling in his extremities. That's nuts.
So the leprosy we have today is nowhere near as extreme as these kinds of like biblical leprosy that existed. Biblical meaning like leper. So they called everything leprosy that even remotely resembled leprosy in that day and age. But he did have genuine leprosy, the kind that causes your like the collagen and stuff like that, and soft tissues on your body to grow hard and fall off, break. So you know he'd be losing fingers, his nose, his ears, and his those sorts of things. But yeah, that's a good question. What does this disease do? What does this miasma even do? Like what's so awful about it? Is it like leprosy? Frozen leprosy? Leprosy on ice?
That wasn't necessarily like what I had in mind. I was thinking like when I first pitched, I was like picturing almost more of like being like more of a gas than anything that could maybe cause like, at this point it would also be like a slow, painful death. Maybe it's just like eroding your lungs. That was my original idea. But if we're going with more like this kind of like sickness kind of thing, I'm just wondering like what it would do then.
Well, so we have two decisions to make here. If that's the case, because the speed at which this stuff spreads and functions, that'll determine how it's weaponized. If it's like kills in a couple of days kind of thing, that's a practical weapon. That's like directly applicable in combat.
Jimbo had a really cool idea. He said, "What if it's infectious frostbite?"
Ooh, yeah.
Oh, that's cool and thematic. And
I cause the extremities to turn black and with it. Yeah, that's really fucking cool. Thank you, Timbo. That's awesome. I hope you don't mind us yoinking that idea. That's fucking awesome. I like the idea of it being a gas, because this is the image in my head right now. So imagine these like Viking type people, they have gas masks on, and you see like smoke completely fill your town. It's like this disgusting, petulant smoke, and they're running through with axes and like chopping people that are still fighting back against them, like through the smoke.
Yeah.
I like that. That also can get the underground side of it in there too. Because my thought was, if this is a disease that's like, it could be that, you know, exposure to it, the greater your exposure, the more rapidly the onset comes. Because I know that's a thing. Like, you know, abundance of exposure can rapidly accelerate symptoms for a lot of things. Which is why they usually, their first response to finding out someone's ill or someone's exposed to chemicals is get them the fuck out. Because being exposed for 5 seconds is a whole other degree than 5 minutes. It's not how immunity works. What they could do is they could, in advance of an attack, burrow under a city and poison their water supply, bury corpses, leave contagion elements there, and begin to infect the populace like a vanguard.
I wasn't
then by the
sapper
time
one
the
of your
siege
words.
gets there.
Sapper should have been one of your words.
Right? We had underground. Underground was there. This is all there. We'll bring it back. Don't worry. There'll be a proper Sapper Nation at some point.
So what you're
like,
suggesting is what they do is they go in and like the scouts, what they do is they set up these like miasma bombs and then set them off, and then they can commence the raid after everything's smoked out.
Exactly. And after everyone's
cool.
already sick. Like they could do like different tiers of it too. Like maybe some of these different groups, like different regiments, would have different variants of it. So like some miasma might act rapidly. Others might be more debilitating but take more time to set in. So you'd have a town that would just suddenly get like sick with a plague, and you'd be like, "Oh no, what's going on?" And then you'd see like the Titans rolling up on the mountain, and you're like, "Oh, that's what caused this. That's the problem." Whereas others, like you find out, and people start dropping down dead in the streets out of nowhere, and then later in the day, you hear like raid sirens or like bells chiming, and you hear screaming at the gates. Like, but I think that'd be a really effective counter, right there.
Yeah. This nation is terrifying.
These guys are fucking awful.
I love this though. I'm living for it. I'm over here like, man, I just imagine all the little scenarios to play in the game. Like, if this actually was real, no, this would be absolutely 100% fucked. Like, horrible. Which is why we're doing it in game, because we can have fun with it here.
Oh, could you imagine there's like a variant of these guys that literally just like carry like a globule of this stuff in their mouth and they spit in the faces of people?
Oh, I love that. That's like a Harlequin's kiss kind of weapon, right?
Like my disease.
Well, I mean, the thing also just the thought though is that like you could do that with prisoners, or like these are like the people sentenced to die, so you send them in the front lines, and that's literally their whole purpose.
Oh, so like a Deathcore of Kree kind of vibe. They're literally just, I know I keep referencing Warhammer, but this setting's so perfect for it. So like the idea of just like, you're gonna die anyway, so you might as well serve the god. I don't know if they have any gods, if they have like pagan gods or something, like, you know, like a pantheon, or maybe they worship the Lords of Steel, the people that originally made their nation so great in the first place.
Yeah.
I like that. And that's also like, I like you mentioned the prisoner thing. And that to me feels like a big deal. Like, if you're not familiar with this nation, you almost might think like, oh, they're releasing our prisoners back to us. That's surprisingly noble of them. And then a couple days later, when they come down with coughing fits and their hands start locking up and they start turning black at the tips, and suddenly you get a cough too, and you're like, motherfuckers.
Do we want to give a name to this?
Like to this methodology or
methodology? I mean, this technically is a war tactic. It's very crop dusting.
Not funny, but funny.
Like, the first thing that came to mind for me was just that their first a known tactic for them would be that they send in death bearers first, just because like those people are going to die no matter what.
Yeah, they literally just send in the disease first and then follow up and finish whatever remains.
Yeah. I like that, death bearers. That's a cool idea.
Death bearers is a cool name. It's a badass name for a really shitty position to be in.
I like if you have somebody that's it's, you know, they've done a terrible thing and they're sentenced to death, it's like this is a way you can redeem yourself, like in our nation's eyes, is to like willingly become a death bearer, because you're going to die no matter what. Might as well seek some glory while you're at it.
I also like the idea of death bearers. Like there could be a warrior that gets infected with the miasma really bad, so they become a death bearer. They're like, screw it.
Yeah.
What? And it's this whole sense of nationalism, just like I'm going to die, but I'm going to die so that my people can get resources back to the homeland, so that my people can continue living. So it's like there's really glory behind these people are horribly fucked up, but I mean, there's like a certain like glory and like heroism behind, kind of like the Imperium. You can't help but root for the Imperium sometimes, even though they're a horrible like hyper-fascist dictatorship.
But again, this is also going back to burden that you mentioned earlier, though. That could be part of it.
Absolutely, yeah. Oh, yeah, burden. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we could conclude that word. That's a smart.
Yeah,
that's a smart one.
I kind of get like the image of like Halo 2 and the Arbiter, where like the whole point of the Arbiter isn't you're gonna live. You're gonna die. If you become Arbiter, you're a criminal, or you've done something so fucked up they cannot let you live. And they're like, look, we're gonna kill you no matter what. Like, I think the exact thing is like, we're gonna hang you by your entrails, the public square. And he's like, I deserve no less. It's like, of course you do deserve it. But if you become the Arbiter, maybe you can clear your name and die a glorious death instead of like on a, die in like the middle of a town square on a gibbet. And it's like, yeah, nah. Okay, I get that. Like, that might be the source of like the modern Sword Saints. Like, maybe that was like the first of the Sword Saints, like that they venerate, was like the first one where it's, oh, this person caught this illness and they brought death to the enemy, the Sword Saint that they've kept. And now, as a tradition, they offer this redemption to people who have done terrible crimes or who are, criminally cowardly or things of that nature. Like, you know what? We're going to help you be brave. You have like maybe 4 days to live. Let's see what you make with those 4 days.
Yeah.
And then they just sort of uplift the ones that do like the most damage or the most like they go down the hardest and have the most epic like last little saga. Everyone's like, wow, that guy's so badass. He served so well. And like practicality is like, nah, that dude got infected with a terrible disease and had like a nihilistic breakdown and killed like 30 people. That is not a good person.
Yeah, people are brutal.
People are great. I like that. So
from Fimbulwinter, I like that Fimbulverkfall. That's interesting.
Fimbulverkfall
for like the formation or like a strike force.
Oh, I like that.
That's kind of cool. Thank you, Finn. I like that. And also, I think Skag suggested Ice Fang as like the name of the.
Ice Fang sounds like the name of a war. It's like, oh yeah, that's Ice Fang. That's the Sword Saint Ice Fang. He was known for biting people after he got infected with the plague, so he could give more people the plague.
Oh my god. Yo, okay, hear me on this. Terrible, terrible thing, but.
Oh boy.
Coating your sword with your own blood.
I mean, that's something that is covering your sword in all sorts of like excrement or all sorts of things that's been done throughout history for thousands of years.
So gross.
Yeah,
I mean,
it'd be a ritual, and it'd be a little more controllable than poop on my sword.
We just stab this big old turd pile real quick.
I knew turd was gonna come up. I called it. So
God damn it, you're right. It bugs me, Rex.
So
I would have bet against that. Damn it.
So what I'm thinking is, in Europe when they were cleaning, the squires, one of their duties was to clean weapons, and they cleaned it with coarse sand and urine. So even if they didn't intentionally mean to just, I'm going to slash this guy and give him a horrible disease because my sword's covered in urine. They didn't even understand that. Because the urine took the rust off of blades and it kept them from rusting, and it took blood out and stuff like that too. So urine and coarse sand. And they'd use that to clean armor too. So maybe these guys just use urine to clean their weapons and they accidentally give people diseases. Or we could go a little bit more forward with it, like you were saying. It's just like, yeah, let's just bloodlet and just like, whew, here you go. Get a load of this. Have my blood.
It feels very ritualized if it's the blood thing. Like to me.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's like a bonding knife ritual.
I'm glad you brought that up. I was gonna be like, yeah, that's Tau players. Rock on.
So I think we have Siege. These guys are fucking hardcore Siege masters. Like,
yeah. God, this is brutal. So they sap under a city. They sap under a city. They undermine and they plant corpses and they poison the city. Some of them subtly, some of them loud, with horrifying disease. And when the disease starts to actually onset, that's when they attack.
Yep.
God, that's so messed up. I fucking hate and love these people already. I genuinely want to run a campaign where you encounter this regiment. This is so terrifying.
We shall. It's only a matter of time.
Absolutely.
These guys seem like absolute bastards, but it's just like you can't help but feel like, man, I kind of feel bad for them. You know,
they're so desperate though.
Yeah, they're so desperate that they're willing to just be like, yeah, we got this prisoner. He like stole a piece of bread, so fuck him. But we're gonna go send him to like carry a plague bomb and just kill everybody. It's just like
I feel like maybe the first time that they did it, it wasn't even intentional.
Yeah,
like
we were talking about that being a sword saint. I was
Yeah.
saying like one of the sword saints was literally just infected and he fought until he died, and then they realized he gave everybody this disease and it made them ineffective.
Right. I feel like it might be, maybe it was the second and like the sword saint tradition that's used now was when they discovered like, hey, when we release prisoners, they're all sick anyway. Like we're immune to this condition, but they're not. Like there's no way to safely exchange prisoners with these people. So they're like, you know what, fuck it. Just weaponize them. They're gonna die anyway. Like they're gonna do it anyway. At least this way they know what's coming.
So these guys are just like these guys are like all kinds of perfectly awful. They're like those. Well, what's that trope? Something bastard, magnificent bastard.
Yeah,
Like
magnificent
like
bastards.
they're such horrible motherfuckers, but you can't help but smile whenever they do something. It's just like, oh, God.
Inglorious bastards.
Oh yeah, that's one I need to rewatch. I haven't seen it in years.
Was
So we have megalography left over, and we keep like touching on these sword saints, but not like going in depth with them. So how would they immortalize these sword saints? I mean, we talked about all this glory and glory is found in death and that sort of stuff. So like, where does that come in with these guys?
Well, I'm wondering if granted we don't know like how long, like we haven't established how long they've been at war with, you know, all of their neighbors and everything like that. And I could see like basically like the surrounding area trying to unite against them, but maybe it's like whoever is deemed to be the sword saint has the original blade that like is almost worshipped at that point.
Ooh, I like that. Literally like almost Arbiter-esque. Like it's the armor
Yeah.
of the Arbiter, but it's the blade of the sword saint.
Yeah. And maybe like whoever is the current sword saint, like maybe that is like a figure of government, or like they are like in charge of the armies and they are like leading these like strikes, and then they just keep going and going and going until they can't anymore, and then it's passed on to the next person that is like has proven themselves worthy of carrying the title of sword saint.
Sword Saint's a title. Okay, I like that. Sword Saint's like a title like mantled by like that'd probably be like their chieftain, as it were. Like they're just passing down this title. But
Yeah, that just the idea that I have with it, just that it's like whoever the sword saint is a very feared person, but it's if you're a sword saint, you're probably not going to live for very long.
Yeah. No.
feared and respect. Well, I don't think any of these people live for very long. I think they're the kind of people that it's like that old tradition in like Norse society where it's like, yeah, if you get to the age where you literally just like can't contribute and you become a burden, like 40, 50, 60, you literally just jump off a cliff. Like, fuck off. You just be that's seriously a thing. They literally were just you are a burden now, and we can't have burdens. We need everybody carrying their weight. So go jump off that cliff.
Oh, what was that Viking comedy show? I remember that scene so well. Did you ever watch that one? It was on Netflix.
I think I know what you're talking about, but I can't remember the name of it. Elise watched it, and she told me it was really funny, but I don't think I've watched it. I know what you're talking about.
Norseman?
Norseman?
Yeah,
sure.
that's the one.
It's Norseman? Okay.
Yeah, it's so cheesy, but there's just this part where they're just like, well, we need you to jump off the cliff. Why? Well, you become a bird. I do more than you do.
I do more than you know. Maybe you should jump off the cliff.
I do like that.
Like, so we're saying, or is there only one, or are there multiple?
What if it's a regimental thing, like a regimental title?
So there's like multiple sword saints, and they all like come together in like a council, and they make the decisions.
Yeah.
Or
yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, maybe it started as one originally, but then it's just like, oh, like we saw like how revered he or she or they were, and then like, okay, so like the leader of each one becomes a like an ordained like sword saint within the society, and then like they are the ones that are kind of making decisions on like where we're going to be, like where are we going, where are we raiding, what are the tactics that we're using.
I like that. It's very Emperor's Champion-esque, and I dig that.
Yeah.
Really cool.
That also, the other reason I suggested regimental level too was because I'm thinking in terms of, because again, this is going to be a game at some point, absolutely. And that gives anyone who wants to play as a faction, like, this is a little way to customize their force. Like, who's my sword saint? Who's the guy in my regiment like that?
Well, I think the thing is, if you were a player leading there, you would be the sword saint. You would be said sword saint. So you'd have like these traits of just being like, yeah, if you die young, you die young. Fuck it. I mean, it's like a barbarian, right? You just going in raging, and it's like, if I go down, I go down. At least I did something, and like, you know, kept aggro off of everybody, right? I mean, like, that's, these guys don't see death as something to fear, you know.
It's an inevitability. It's a thing they have to embrace.
To die of old age is a dishonor, you know, like. To die of anything other than just dying in combat is probably just like, that's a horrible shame.
Yeah.
Man, that would suck. Like in this set, in most settings in this civilization, I figure, like ending up as like the commander of a regiment. That's basically where you're a player character. Like that is like a level of agency and prestige and respect. And like in this, it's like you look down and one day like you feel a tremor and the tips of your fingers are numb and you're like, fuck. And like that's how you end up in command. They're like, oh yeah, no, you got it. Who knows how long it's going to take to kill you, but well, here's your regimental papers. They report to you tomorrow. Parade them as much as you want, but then take them to war. You're like, great. Guess I'm going to make the best of the next 1 to 5 years I might have left, if that.
I like the idea of these like sword saints. Like there's some sort of like giant, like, I'd imagine it's an absolutely massive, like Titanic-sized longhouse, and the sword saints are literally just like statues that they have, or that maybe they have like busts of these sword saints, like all over this thing. Or maybe, better yet, what if they have the skulls of every single sword saint just like strung from all over this longhouse?
That is metal as fuck. I'm not gonna
lie. I kind of like the idea of like maybe that's also a thing they can do for like a denoting kind of denoting garment. Like most, you know, you have regimental colors and commander colors for most things. Like, oh, that dude has a plume. That guy's probably a captain. Like, or, you know, that guy has like a bunch of golden like thread or rope on him. Yeah, that's probably like a lieutenant or something, or a major. But these guys, it's like that guy over there with like the boa that has like human finger bones all over it from all the different sword saints of the past. That guy's the sword saint. Why? Oh no, those were all his predecessors. Like hanging around his neck.
So these guys carry reliquaries of like of other previous sword saints. Like,
I feel like they would become part of it. Like they're a living reliquary. Mm-hmm. Like they have like the reliquary within the longhouse, but then they wear a part of that. Like they're just part of the exhibit as far as they're concerned. It's not in situ yet.
Hell yeah, these guys are fucking cool. They're awful, but they're cool.
This is the perfect, like, if you want to have a regiment with edge, like these are the guys for you.
Yeah, well, I'm wondering, like, in order to just become a sword saint, though, I'm wondering if there are like prerequisites that are like associated with it. So, I mean, obviously, battle prowess would be one of them, but I'm wondering if you could also just like have that flip side inverse. It's like compassion is something that they're also known for, at least for like their people.
And, like, showing mercy and stuff like that.
Well, like, or maybe, I don't know. I like the fact that they are like these, like, they are brutal warriors, but they are also like very compassionate. Like they are very like, the reason like they're a saint for a reason, at least in the eyes of like this society. But I'm just wondering, like, what is it that like when they're not on the battlefield, like maybe they are like doing the most good that they can. Like they're distributing, like to the poor. They're like taking care of their own. Like maybe it's like you have to demonstrate these like capabilities, the fact that you can lead on more than just a battlefield. You can still lead at home as well, and then that's how you become a sword saint.
We could probably borrow from real life here. where like most of the time, if you end up in command of like a regiment in pre-World War One era, you don't do that usually through skill. You do that through parentage or family. And like there's an understanding, like if you're an officer in World War One, it's probably because you're married or related to an officer or a person with rank or someone who's important, but they have to represent it by court. And so, but they could have courtly values in this culture. It's like if you are leadership, if you are going to be trained in an officer's school, then you would have to demonstrate these qualities. It is part of what the culture expects.
Yeah,
And then when they get there, they aren't able to seize control of a regiment as a sword saint until they're ill. Like, other than that, they're advisory. Like, it's like you're not able to rise above, like, lieutenant or, like, a captain until you get sick. And then only then can you wear the blade.
I will say, though, I also do like the idea of, like, going, like, full meritocracy, the fact that anybody could become a sword saint, that it's not, like, it's not who you know, it's not, like, what you're born into, it's just the fact that it's, like, you are recognized as being, like, proficient on the battlefield and having, like, kindness in your heart for your people. Like, that's where I'm kind of going with this personally, just because then it's, like, if you have someone that proves themselves, they're, like, you are in line to, like, become a sword saint. And then once that sickness starts to send, that's just like you become ordained. Like that is now your role.
I like that.
Because then it could give your it could like really increase that idea of like passion amongst your people, and like the fact that everybody would be striving to like become a sword saint, because that is like the highest honor that you could probably get in this society.
Kind of like that.
Yeah, and it gives them something to strive towards. You know, it's like a strive towards in 4. It's just.
Yeah, you have to have that goal when your life basically sucks.
That's fair.
Hey, you're freezing to death. Okay, go to a warm place and kill people.
I mean, that actually sounds like a vacation comparatively to like freezing to death and slowly dying of this brutal disease that kills you over time. Like, yeah, no, actually going somewhere. It sounds like it's literally people who moved to Florida, but they brought a battle axe with them.
Basically, yeah.
I like that idea. I feel like it could be both, right?
Yeah.
Like, because you have like you have the keys to power in any nation state. Like, there's someone out there, or like even if it's a crumbling nation state, someone pays for the military to arm the military to train the military. They inevitably end up in power. That's just a point of the case. But I like the meritocratic edge of it, where anyone could end up in these schools, in these sword saint schools, these sword saint, like, you know, you could be elevated from that. All it takes is an officer from there being like, I saw that young man split his bread with someone else. That young man needs to go into our school now. Yeah. Or like, you know, some lord's like, you did me a great service. I'll elevate your family to this status. You can send a child to the Sword Saint Academy if you want.
So it's kind of arbitrary. They just like the higher ups just pick and choose. Like, oh yeah, you did something cool.
And it's meritocracy, right? Like, who's going to vote? Someone's got to vote on it, and those guys inevitably become powerful.
So the big question I have then is, do we only have one Sword Saint, or do we have multiple? Because maybe they're the ones that chooses their successor then.
I think we'd have multiple. The Sword Saints sort of act as like the leaders. I like the idea of the Sword Saints are like the best of the people, like you were saying, not just like being warriors, but like being kind and good to people back home as well. Hence the saint part of it. You know, they're good people. But yeah, it's just like they want to. They're the leaders of wherever they're from. So there's probably like a good handful of these Sword Saints. I mean, there could be 10 of them. There could be 100 of them. You know, just depends how big the nation is, and also depends on how bad things are at the current time, like what the political situation's looking like. Now, there's probably times where Sword Saint dies, and he's just like, well, I didn't declare anybody. They didn't declare anybody to be their predecessor, so it's just like we have to figure something out. And there's probably a lot of like weird amount of bureaucracy in that regard. It's just like, what would he have picked? It's like, who are you to say what he would do? It's just like, and then there's a lot of infighting going on because of that.
I'm wondering if there might be like an organization that like also like aids the Sword Saints in like identifying people in that case.
Like a clergy almost?
Yeah.
That's interesting. I like that.
Maybe that is like the religion of these people. Like, I mean, obviously like war is one of them, but like literally there's this order of the Sword Saint that like there's maybe a handful of people that are like helping like each Sword Saint like choose who their successor will be.
I feel like that would be a hospitaller of some kind. Like, you know, some sort of because if the sword saint, in order to become ordained, needs to get sick, like it would be equal parts like we need to help him find like a good and noble successor to this most noble and holy of posts, but also like a practical, okay, who's looking like they might be at risk, who might be in early stage of infection, and you'd want to turn to the clergy and be like, hey, I don't want to go to, like, the funny thing is, if sword saints have this illness, they would also somewhat isolate themselves too. They'd have to, or else their whole regiments are going to die from just them. So like the hospitallers are probably a go-between for them and their regiment, like on a practical level and on like the assessment level too.
Thank you for the hydration check.
Civilization.
I know these guys are cool. Like I'm saying, they're cool in the fucking worst way possible.
Oh, thank you, Nurse.
Yeah, appreciate the hydration check. I've been talking on it and been thinking about it. Let's see.
Already an hour and a half into this. Holy crap!
Yeah, wow. I mean, we're getting to a good stopping point too, because we've covered all the words. You know, like we've every single one of the words we've covered. So
I'm gonna have fun drawing these guys. They're Titans. Man, that's gonna be so fucking cool.
Them motherfucking evil as fuck. I like it though. I like how evil they are. They had a really cool evil civilization. So I think we will take a 5 to 10 minute break, folks. And in the meantime, we'll be taking prompts from the audience. If we have one prompt from the audience, we'll do that and call it. If we have a multiple prompts from the audience, we'll go from there. But like I said, stick around. We will be right back. Hey folks, welcome back for the latter half of the show. Don't look at the last Omnitex Twitter page, lol. I had that pulled up when we were on the break. Like I said, the last portion of the show is, as usual, we take prompts from the audience. It seems we have 2 right now. Or no, we got one from Fen too, so 3.
Yep, we have 3.
Nice. Okay, cool. So Neris's were, what sort of creatures might this civilization have domesticated? If any. Sounds like they're in a frozen place. Yeah, I'd imagine they'd have some domesticated beasts. And then how do they feed their people? That's also a good point. And then Fen's was, do they have any deities they worship? That's a good one too. Timbo, thank you for the welcome back, and thank you for the welcome back, Neris. So let's start from the get-go. So let's talk domesticated animals.
So I feel like I have this idea that they would probably want something that is like a burrowing kind of creature. Just because it would.
Oh no.
The thing is that it would make the sapping easier, but also this does kind of lead into like how do they feed their people. I feel like hunting would probably be like big for them, especially if you're like if there is this whole glory in battle, you go and you take on the big things, right? So if we're like in our world, I could see them being like, yeah, I went and fought a polar bear, it's fine.
Casually.
Like obviously, like it would be like hunter groups, like going and like hunting that way. But I also had this idea that like if we're incorporating some underground elements as well, like if this is people that is like used, like because everything's gonna be frozen on the surface, you like dig down, and I could see them like having kind of like underground farms, primarily going like with like fungus and mushrooms. Like maybe they have types
tubers, that kind of thing.
Yeah, like that would be like a large source of their vegetation then. Or if they have like discovered like underground lakes, maybe they like fish those. Like, granted, that wouldn't be as much because obviously with a civilization like this, you could easily wipe out the entire like fish population in the area. But I do like the idea of them having like if we're going like into that kind of fantastical area, I think like having some kind of like muscular like burrowing kind of thing, maybe. I'm just trying to think on like what I'm picturing here. I'm thinking almost kind of like an armadillo almost, but then just like make it about the size of a bear.
That's fucking awful.
I love that.
Just giant fucking
so much.
Armadillo creatures.
That's like those prehistoric sloths.
Oh yeah, those. God damn it! I just saw those. I just learned about what the hell those things were the other day. That's awful.
Yeah, I went to like my local like museum of natural science like 2 years ago, and actually like I had no idea those were even a thing, and I saw it, like, neither. What the hell is that?
It said the sloth. I don't remember what they're called. They're called are they called Giga Sloths or something like that? They're called something really
something like that. Mega Sloth or Giga Sloth.
Yeah, but
something like that.
But I'm just picturing something that is like maybe like armadillo, like just having those like big claws, and like they like I'm thinking they're not particularly like violent. They're not like trained for combat. They're literally just there to dig, and they are trained for that purpose. Because then you think about it, if you domesticate that, and like if you are needing to like grow these tubers and fungus and everything like that, you can like just have them dig down. They make a tunnel for you. Like that takes care of a lot of the work for your people.
That would also be a really quick way to make encampments and stuff.
Exactly.
Like, I like that. So almost kind of like the way we would tame oxen, like teams of oxen to pull like plows and that kind of thing. They're taming these things to naturally burrow and like to train them how to burrow in directions, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I like that. That's cool.
So they just have giant like fucking sloth creatures.
Yeah.
That's.
I feel like the size of it makes sense too, because like my thoughts on it, when you think about like a wintry creature, like nature has basically one answer for cold, like besides fur, and that's fat. There are only 2 options: fur or fat. And that's why almost everything up north is either really small with an adorable fluffy fur coat, or fuck huge with a thick layer of blubber and a big furry coat.
Yeah, and maybe the people just affectionately call them diggers. Maybe that's literally just what they're called.
Like that, yeah. Like to them, it's just like, oh yeah, no, it's like a draft horse. It's like their Clydesdale. It doesn't bother them. Anyone else is like, the fuck is that prehistoric monster? Like, and why is it burrowing under the homestead? And they're like, oh no, it's fine. It's harvest time. They're getting the tubers.
Jeffrey, our digger.
Yeah. Jeffrey,
Mega.
we feed him the rotten tubers. Like,
Megathera. Antarctic scale worms are very Antarctic scale worms? Hold on, now I gotta look this one up. Antarctic scale worms. Oh no, these already look awful. Oh, what the fuck is that?
What the
That's some
hell?
Cthulhu shit. What the hell is that?
Yeah.
Eee.
Oh, I just had a terrible idea. What if those things like burrow into the ice? Except like take that size and then make it like 15 feet long.
Oh man.
What if that's like the natural predator of the digger?
That's messed up?
Are these
Or like a
scale
parasite
worm
of some
things?
kind.
Yeah.
These are gross.
I could see like it being like a parasitic or like an ambush predator. Like that's pretty common. That kind of thing. Like what kills cows largely? Well, coyotes, wolves, like stuff that's not as big as them, but you get a pack of them, they'll tear it apart or they'll kill it. So that's messed up. I feel like there's like, so we have the draft horse equivalent, and that's our diggers. We have these horrifying worms, which, oh god, I can't think of any way to raise these that isn't sadistic as all I get out. There's no way to raise something like that without being like, oh yeah, you feed it meat.
The thing is, like, I'm thinking that like those aren't necessarily like that's not something that you domesticate. I'm just thinking like that's just a natural predator in the area. That's something that scares people.
Yeah, that's fair.
Especially if one like burrows like and then like somehow gets into like if this is also like a tunneling kind of creature. Again, going back to like the trimmers comparison that we had earlier, if this is something that like if that gets into like the farm, like that's when like you send for a sword saint to kill that thing.
That's messed up.
God.
That's so messed up. I get like the same imagery of like rats as well. Or like, rats in a grain silo where they're like, oh yes, food. We'll set up shop here. Like this thing's like, oh yes, tubers, freshly cut. Smells delicious. I'm gonna burrow in. And then someone's like, okay, I'm going to go into the tunnel and I'm going to go into the burrow and get the tubers. Screaming ensues, and you're like, oh, no.
Yeah. Oh, look, it's a tasty flesh puppet.
Yeah. Oh, God. That's so messed up. I love it. They are very odd creatures.
So
They are definitely odd creatures. The metallic body is really interesting. That has to be some sort of adaptation against the cold. Like, their spines look like they're practically metal. I don't need to look that up. That's super cool. What the biology of it is. The animal is horrifying, but the biology of it is fascinating as all hell. God damn it.
I'm just trying to think of like other things that they could potentially domesticate.
Definitely not those fucking weird worm things. I guess they could eat them.
Actual moles might not be a bad idea. Like, if the diggers are meant to dig, like, large things, like, actually do, like, the bulk digging, they could, like, train moles to act like truffle pigs to help them, like, sniff out the tubers and stuff. So, and in exchange, they give them some of them. Like, that's how a truffle pig works. You teach the truffle pig to sniff out a truffle. In exchange, you give it a snack. You both win. It's not like you're actually domesticating a dog. Like, they're smart, but they're not the same. You have to reach an agreement with that animal. Like, you can do the same with, like, just moles, normal, like, smaller burrowing creatures. Like, you might not necessarily want a 15-foot-long, like, 700, 800-pound animal messing with your potatoes. But, like, a mole digging around might not be a bad option.
Okay. I'm also thinking that, especially because, like, we've established this is, like, a very kind of, like, raiding style, like, civilization. I feel like they would definitely, like, in terms of communication, they would probably want like ravens or other birds or the equivalent of that. So you could have like you're trained carrier pigeons. I'm just thinking, how can we do an Arctic nightmare version of that?
I mean, I feel like. Go ahead.
So what are they going to eat though?
Oh God. Is it wrong that my first thought of this horrible civilization is, wow, like a civilization like this would eat people? But I'm like, no, that's too much.
I don't think these guys are cannibals.
No, I don't think so either. But
not yet.
The brutality of it, like, especially if we're talking about cold and winter and that kind of thing, like that's where that kind of imagery comes from. But what if their meat comes from where they raid. Like they don't have anything that they can hunt realistically and breed realistically. Because to breed farm animals takes exponentially more resources than breeding food.
Yeah.
Like them making than growing crops. That's why we had rice kingdoms long before we had meat and dairy.
They are
and
the
even
world's
chickens.
most pissed off vegetarians.
Like they sure as hell love meat because they didn't make it. They went there and they break into a pen. They take 600 cattle. You will never see those cattle again. They are all ending up on a dinner table. They have no ability to raise them in their frozen tundra places. How would you contain a burrowing creature? You don't.
Yeah.
Mushrooms. So
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't think
And I'm right there with you on that one.
Yeah. I think their protein would have to be a little more reliable than like meat, because like subsistence hunting, that kind of thing, like you could do like deer. They could even hunt diggers in the wild, that kind of thing. But like, if they want a reliable source of protein, if they're trying to escape this encroaching winter because of scarcity, then they need scarcity, and that means they don't have any staples of that kind. Ideally, that's depressing.
I mean, they could eat mushrooms. Yeah, mushrooms are something they could eat.
Yeah. Like they're not utterly devoid of food sources. It's just not enough to feed their civilization en masse.
Bear meat.
Hey, I mean, pheasants, pigeons, that kind of thing.
But if they, so they're in like a frozen Arctic kind of area. Why? Well, I mean, who's to say they don't kill whales and eat whale meat?
It's possible.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't establish that they were landlocked. I mean, they could be near like an ocean.
Whale meat.
That would definitely vibe with their Viking aesthetic we got going for them too.
Yeah.
Like right down to like the fishing kind of thing. I feel like we've kind of mentioned that the oceans are somewhat more dangerous than usual in this setting, but I don't remember for sure. If we haven't, I think that might not be a bad idea. So it's like, yes, you can whale, just it's not going to be an easy whaling experience.
I feel like at least out of like the people that we've established, this would be the nation that'd be crazy enough to do it.
Right.
And again, it's literally more from sheer desperation than it is anything else. It's not that they're doing it like for resources. Just it's food and it's there.
Right. That's fair. I like that. Plus, they could also render that would go back to our torches right there if they're rendering out like the fat and the oil, that kind of thing, the blubber.
Yeah.
Everything they eat up there would be fatty as all hell. Like, so yeah, no. You could render that into wax, you could render that into oil.
Yeah.
Bear oil lantern, that sounds weird, but hey, when you got enough bears and you got enough lanterns, got enough bears people hunting them, you get enough bear fat, that'll do it.
Okay.
Which one of these guys wearing a skeleton in the service glove? Like this is sandworm riders from Dune. Oh god, that's so screwed up. Oh my god. I gotta say, I love the Dune ones, but that thing terrified me so bad.
They're fucking rad. Okay, so I think we're down to the deities. Do they have deities? That's a good question. I mean, the sword saints kind of go without saying.
Yeah, I feel like they would almost just be like living deities.
Yeah, they'd be they wouldn't have any sort of like higher power, as it were. Like these people were the higher power. Probably makes them hated by a lot of different nations because it's like they worship people, and like that's a common theme throughout a lot of Abrahamic religions and stuff like that. It's like, don't worship people, like don't make false idols. Like you're supposed to follow these figures, and that's it. And these people are just like, we're gonna follow the figures that we like.
Yeah.
They're living people, and they actually did things for us.
Yeah. Where was your God when we starved in the north?
Exactly. Yeah, so these guys just worship the sword saints. I mean, do we have any like notable sword saints? I'd imagine. So I have a character who references saints nonstop, and
I love him.
Yeah, Giles of Wolfram. He references saints nonstop. It's like part of his faith to just be like, by so and so, by them, blah blah. It's just like, all right, call upon them and that sort of thing. It's just like do these people have any like hallmark saints?
I just had the idea. What if there was one that it was Khanat would be the just the name that popped in my head, and that would be Khanot. Maybe like a very early sword saint that like led. Maybe he was the one that either like established that compassion must be a requirement of the sword saint, or he was like one of the fiercest of the sword saints.
I like that dichotomy. He's either nicer than many,
Or more brutal.
brutal. Yeah.
I like him being known for compassion. That's a cool. I like the idea. Like these guys already have enough fucked up shit going on with them. They need a little bit of like. They need a little bit of help in that regard. So like, yeah, you should be good to people.
Maybe Khanat was the third sword saint or something like that. And because like we've established that they have like the finger bones of the former sword saints, maybe it's like the first one is literally like the centerpiece, and then they like kind of go from there.
Ooh, I like that. That's pretty cool.
Hell yeah.
I'm on board with that.
Cool. Okay, so I think we can come up with a couple of these since we got Khanat. Khanat is cool.
I feel like
Tales from the Table Studios. Hello.
Hey Drake.
I feel like, again, to go back to like the inspiration I'm thinking of with the Sword Saints, I'm again strong Halo Arbiter vibes. Like the Arbiters aren't remembered by their names; they're remembered by their deeds. It's like the Arbiter who died in the Grunt Rebellion, the Arbiter who fought with the pacification of the Hunters, the Arbiter that brought together the Sangheili and the Sanshayun. Like, it's literally, this Arbiter is fighting to get prestige or some kind of legacy behind. Throwing that word out there, Skag, I saw you. Thanks for shouting about my project and that really cool word. And so, like, maybe that's, like, how it works. Each sword saint is known for a thing. And so, like, you have... The first sword saint is the one that started the tradition of sword saints. The second one was the one that's like, okay, compassion is a pivotal part of being a sword saint. I'll redefine what the practice is. It's not just a badass warrior; it's a badass warrior of heart. And then another one was maybe the first one was like, I'm going to appoint the Deathbringers, or create the Deathbringers as like a compassion for the people who failed us, or like a compassion for the people who would otherwise be put to death or just die horribly. Like, at least in glory, they can be reborn, or something like that.
I think I got a name for the first sword saint. I got a name for the first sword saint.
Sword saint.
They're from Boston.
They talk like
Boston
this.
Vikings.
Hey, fuck you! I'm gonna throw a disease at you.
Oh my God. That has to be canon.
Catch my disease. I wouldn't be intimidated anymore. They do all these fucked up things. If they talk to me, they're like, "Hey, who the fuck you think you're talking to?" Yeah, that's right.
I'm walking over here.
I'm a fucking sword saint. What are you gonna do, pal? That's awful.
It reminds me of this meme that I saw. It's like, cowards, like, make your elves talk like they're from Boston, and I've wanted to do that so bad.
I always see, because of World of Warcraft, my first instinct for a goblin voice is like Chicago Italian.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, hey, I'm a goblin. Watch out! I'll cut you.
I'm gonna remember that one.
So, I was thinking the first sword saint would be like Saint Grayfa. I was thinking that she'd be the champion that led people. They're just like, hey, don't give up because our city's lost. Let's go somewhere else. And she's just like, we're gonna start raiding and killing other people that abandon us in our time of need.
Yeah.
Oh, that adds another dimension onto their little like battle. That's like a
justifies some of it. It makes them morally gray. It's just like, well, they're attacking people of these nations that betrayed them and didn't, like, hey, we're entering an ice age. We need as much supplies as possible because we're gonna have to like do a mass migration of like probably well over hundreds of thousands of people, and they're just like, no. It's like, so it's war then. So.
Literally, where was Gondor when the Westfold fell? And
Dude,
literally. Gondor is fucked. Give him a minute, buddy. But yeah, no, I like that here. That's a powerful tribe too. That works.
Yeah, and maybe it was only like maybe it was only the first 3 Saints are like the most like memorable, and then from there it just becomes more of a like just a general title. Maybe these were the ones that like really established the order of sainthood as it is, and like those are like the 3 like most prominent like parts. Maybe it's like, I don't know, like I feel like a skull would be like too much to have on like somebody's like either like necklace or something like that, or like what they would be wearing. But
They definitely decorate their homes with those sorts of things. Like they're like holy relics.
yeah,
Yeah. Like I feel like reliquary is the name of the game, right?
yeah,
Like you would like, because I like the idea of like having the skulls or like that sort of thing in like the longhouses, in the Titans these guys move around in. But like I like the idea also of them maybe having like the little glass reliquaries, like almost like a drapery on them. So they have like smaller, more portable, less grisly depictions of it. It's still bones, but it's bones within like glass reliquaries or something.
yeah.
Palpatine's speech.
It's true.
I have a name for the third one. So the first saint is the one that established the tradition of the sword saint. The second one was the Saint of Mercy. I kind of like the name Shalom for the third one. Let me see.
Hey, Shalom, how you doing? It's me.
Shalom.
Hey, how you doing?
It makes sense if they have the canonical Boston accent.
Okay, spell it how you think it's spelled, because I was about to write out like shalom, like fucking like the Hebrew, like hello, you know. Shalom.
Oh, yeah. Shalom. I think Shalom would probably be the one that would be like. So the first one's the one that led the crusade. The second one is the one that imparted mercy, and I think the third one is the one that began to like. The third one is the one that laid down the bedrock for the ones that follow. Because the first one, no one thought there was going to be another sword saint. The second one rises up, like, okay, this is clearly a sword saint. The third one's like, let's figure out a structure for canonization. Maybe they're the ones that founded the order that assists sword saints going forward.
Okay.
So they're like the one who established the Hospitallers.
Okay, so let's come up with a name for like the Hospitallers, as it were.
I feel like the imagery to me would be, for most people, their interactions with a sword saint are either in like a public square or through these guys. So for me, I'm getting a very almost ghastly kind of feel, almost like a funerary detail for a living person, because they're gonna die, and like when they die, these are the folks are gonna bury them and move the next person up. So I don't know how we want to incorporate that. Any ideas, chat? Hit me with a name. Unless we have a better one.
I was thinking. See, the Hospitallers. You're talking about the like the Holy Order, right?
Correct. Yeah, the one that assists the sword saints.
Yeah. Proclivity for biohazardous warfare. Hell yeah! I love throwing my. I throw my disease at you. Take it.
I'm gonna come over there and sneeze on you. And cut down your family as you cough.
These guys are the most hardcore anti-maskers the world has ever seen.
Oh my
god.
Relevant.
No.
They're a walking PSA.
I mean, they're like Death Guard. They're just like a little less happy about it.
That's very true. They seem like they're slightly a little more contained as well.
You look at me weird, then I'll spit upon you. So, I'm trying to think of like a good, like, maybe like an Icelandic kind of like Bjarn or Jökull or Ivar, you know.
What
like
about sword bearers? Like,
sword bearers are good.
Because like sword saints are the ones who wield them, but these are the ones who would hand the blade off to the successor of the death of the last one.
We could just call them the bearers.
Yeah.
Yeah, that works for me. I like that. Ooh, I'm seeing some Icelandic lettering there. That makes me happy. I'm gonna type in.
Death
Or
Watch.
type that into Google
Oh,
Translate and see how they say it.
Yeah.
Dalavocht? I don't know what
I
that
look.
O
I
is.
look at that.
Literally
and
means Death Watch.
I just look at that and I just go, nope.
How pronounce? How do you pronounce? I do that fucking like TikTok. How do you
Dalavocht.
pronounce?
Dalavocht.
How? Maybe we can like
Dalavocht.
the backwards D is pronounced like a TH.
Dalavocht. Dalavocht.
Dalavocht? I like that. I'm just trying to think like, should we make it more of like a phonetic spelling for the setting?
It might not be a bad idea because we aren't actually dealing with like actual real languages, but I do like
That's always something I've encountered when I'm like coming up with names for things. Like, do I go with the actual like correct pronunciation and spelling of like something that's I'm supposed to be referencing, or do I say let's take some liberties? Particularly when I'm coming up with Celtic nations, because holy goddamn,
that's fair.
It's a
That's
nightmare.
big.
This
fair.
is why like 95% of my writing is for tabletop, and then I just make it what I want it to be, and I don't care about the rest.
Yeah, I mean, I was like, I'm gonna have an Irish inspired, like an early Irish inspired nation of like halfling people, and they're very like tribal centric. It was just like I was coming up with all these names, just like I don't know how to pronounce any of this. Apparently, that D makes like a sound or something. It's just like so. I went with Tirganri, which I was like, that's cool. Tirganri means land without kings.
That's cool.
Okay,
So-
yeah.
So
It's like a weird twist on. Probably a language that my grandfather didn't even speak, and he was from fucking Ireland. So grandmother.
I do want to keep the backwards D though. That is such a cool one. You
That
don't
is
see
cool,
that letter
yeah.
used. So
Icelandic's hard to learn.
Dalavocht.
I've been trying.
So do my mind immediately goes to like D-U-E. D-U-E the, and then the Vacht is. Do we just make it Dalavocht?
Yep.
And just leave the T off at the end?
I think so.
Where is the backwards D supposed to be?
It's the fourth one in. So if that's
That's a D.
yeah, Dalavocht, but that's the TH. So this would be like if I'm pronouncing it the way I'm writing this at, it'd be Dalavocht, and we just leave the T off at the end.
And we'll
Okay.
put in like a phonetic pronunciation. Doesn't really look like
Yeah.
a backwards D. It looks like a It looked like an O with the Enye on top of it from Twitch chat.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's the
Yeah, it really
it's
does.
the reverse D. It's the reverse D with a little cross over it. Dalavocht. Dalavocht.
Doof with like a long O. Doothovok.
Dalavocht. I thought it would be like Dalavocht, but like
like
dew, like morning
dew.
dew. Yeah.
Doof. That's really weird.
Dalavocht.
Doof, you know what I'm talking about?
I love the idea of like a translator
Doof the
arriving
dude.
with like a little pamphlet in whatever the language is. Can I speak to the Dalavocht? And they're like, oh god, it's one of them. Be lucky if they don't go
Terrorist.
home without being sick. Yeah. Fucking uninoculated over
Who's
here.
this Doothovok I need to talk to? I'm not quite sure.
And you see, it just rolls out. Just, me.
I always seen the I see that
Okay,
too. B is a reverse D. You're not wrong, but like that's kind of like that's a weird one. I like it though. It's the bendy D. It's the bendy D with a little sail on it.
So this shalom, there we go. How did you pronounce it? Because I just said
Shalom.
shalom.
So shalom, as in like
Shalom.
literally.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's get up at the.
I know. You know what? I'm gonna be fine if you guys go shalom, and I'm like, that's fine. I mean, that whatever works.
Shalom.
Hello, shalom.
Shalom. I tell you what, Jewish accents are so charming. Like they're just like, shalom. It's like, oh yeah, that sounds really nice and pleasant. Let's see. We had a Jewish deli in St. Louis, and they all talked like that. It was really funny because everybody else had this like the accent that I did, just like a regular Midwestern American accent. They're like, "Oh, hello!" It's like, "Oh, it's authentic. It's cool." It's like that's awesome. I love hearing people's accents. It's so cool. So this is shalom. He, she, they.
I feel like so. Here's my thoughts. And hear me out on this because this is kind of a generally all the saints kind of thing. This disease is a wasting disease. It has frostbite properties. It's clearly inspired a little bit by leprosy on our part, and like frostbite. So, if we're going by the same as the leper king, that dude wore a mask, like to avoid people seeing the worst of his scarring as he got more and more infected. They would probably do the same. Like, it could be that when you become a sword saint, they give you a death mask. Like, they cast your face and make you a mask right there. So it's like, okay, when you die, at least you'll have the dignity of your face.
Yeah.
Like, as opposed to what will eventually happen, which is, I mean, frostbite, man. It weathers you out. So, I think when they do that, like, depending on the regiment, I feel like Shalom would definitely be the kind of person that would have been like, they're androgynous. They don't identify by like they might not even, that might even be their original name. The Sword Saints might take on a saintly title name and then retire their old identity.
Yeah.
Like,
oh, so yeah, they're like popes, where they like come up with their own. They get a new name whenever they're brought in. That's an interesting
exactly.
idea.
They get
Just
they get an identity. They wear a mask, and at that point, it's like, what are you? Well, I'm dead. Like, my gender doesn't matter. I'm not breeding.
Actually,
like,
I like the idea of the fact that just the fact they do become like elevated, that they are more than the binary at that point. I think that's a really cool idea.
That they're beyond. They have. That's that meme. We have gone beyond gender. It's just like, no, that's a cool idea.
Thank you, Shady. Cheers.
Oh, is that a hydration check? Right on. Thank you. Yeah, but yeah, becoming a sword saint is just like to ascend beyond like humanity. It's like you are a literal embodiment of everyone, that's really interesting because that is a theme that you see a lot in pagan culture. I say pagan, like northern pagan, so like we're talking Baltic and stuff like that. Even throughout like Grecian culture, a lot of the gods, they're depicted as like androgynous because they're meant to be able to relate to male and female. So, and then a lot of that, you have a lot of hermaphroditic type gods too that have both genitals or no genitals at all. They're meant to be able to relate to the male or female sex, And then,
Loki,
so on,
Loki was the mother of his own monsters. Like, just saying.
A man got pregnant. I mean, come on now. Like, it's that to be divine is to be. To be divine is to be beyond, gender constructs, or even just like, even beyond the natural sex. Like it's just to go above and beyond that. It's like well, and as Ajax said, these guys aren't reproducing. They're literally just going to die. Like that's their whole thing.
They are their legacy now. Like
they become gods.
Their saga is their identity.
Yeah, they've taken up a new mantle, and they are literally gods until they die. And even when they die, they're still considered gods.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
I think that's
when they die, they're mortal death.
Yeah, they ascend at that point.
They've
done all they can for us now, and they will watch over us into the future.
Yeah. And then they truly become immortal in the songs of their people, and in the art, and in their reliquaries. They'll live longer than they ever would have in life.
That's really cool. I know that's going to be popular with a lot of folks too. That's not only just really cool, it's also really cool representation. That's really fucking awesome. It's just like, could you imagine a sword saint that just like like let's say like a trans curious sword saint who's just like, they're doing all these great things and they're not sure if they feel comfortable in their body, and they ascend to being a sword saint. They're just like, I finally feel comfortable with myself, and then that they find holiness. Like that's really awesome. I like That's one thing I always worry about representation. If it feels shoehorned in, this feels really fucking cool and really natural. So I like that.
And also, but I feel like, especially like if you have like this is kind of based on that meritocracy, then I feel that like, yes, like let's be real, this is a brutal nation. Like that's just who they are. But the thing is that I feel like they would at least have to acknowledge the fact that like gender doesn't matter at that point, because like, and I feel like this would be like one of those places that they do a lot of terrible things, but they don't judge based on that kind of thing.
They're not judgmental people. Yeah,
I know we put an entire town to the sword after infecting them with our diseases, but we're not going to judge you for who you are and who you identify as.
Your Honor, in my defense, it was funny.
Everyone fights, no one quits. That is true.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. That is a very.
Just watched that last night too. You apes want to live forever.
But the thing is also, especially like when I feel like if you're just like a person that's out and fighting and you're doing your thing like for your nation, and like the highest honor that you could potentially achieve in your lifetime is to basically like transcend yourself. I feel like that would be like one of those like, who cares about the binary at that point?
Yeah. You're not he or she or they. You are they. You are we. That's the royal we.
You are a legend.
Yeah, you're literally a legend. People refer to you as like they don't ever refer to you as a pronoun. They're like they. Well, they is a pronoun, but you get the idea. Like they call them by their name or their title. Saint. They're like they are saint.
And I'm really glad that we addressed that too, because that's something I'm trying to work on, like with my own writing and my own games and stuff like that. Is that I'm trying to like, how can I have more inclusive characters without it feeling like forced necessarily? So I'm really glad that we
look at
that.
Nordic and Baltic religions, like and their way of life. They didn't see that whole Western idea of like women being subservient. That's something that came from Western Europe. You know, that like in the North, it's just. They've literally dug up recently too. They've dug up a lot of like burial sites of like Nordic and like Scandinavian people, and women buried with weapons and armor. You know, like they didn't see sex as something that should stop you from doing something. They didn't see women as weaker or anything like that. That's a whole Western philosophy, you know. So the whole idea, and absolutely, you know, that there was gay couples and stuff like that. There were non-straight couples in ancient society. That's been a victim to gay erasure. I mean, I was talking about the women being buried with armor. There were women buried in like a cuddling, like almost the same kind of pose that you'd see for a wedding burial for like a couple. There were women buried like that. There were men buried like that. You know, it's this whole history of gay erasure from Western civilization that's done away with all this stuff.
As the meme goes, oh, they must be really good friends.
Yeah, they must be roommates.
As a scholar about the two Grecian naked men wrestling in the mud, like, yeah, sure, they're just friends.
They're just roommates.
Totally fine. Totally normal.
So, and we also saw that in Egypt. They found a statue of two women. They were literally in the same exact pose that they would use to depict wedding poses, and the historian was like, they must have been very good friends. I was like, fuck off. Actually, fuck off. Like, why is it so hard to conceptualize that? Like,
I'm gonna jump in here very fast because one, I love that meme and I can think of no further like height to reach with that. But two, Tales from the Table Studios, I love this very much. We are of the you can take your glory, what you do, who you are, who you love. These are yours to choose, but honor and glory are yours to earn regardless of the rest. That is such the definition. I love that. Like, that is the saint. That is like the saint definition, I think.
I feel like if there was going to be a Saint Creed, I feel like that would be it.
Yeah. That's so good.
God, that was
Tales.
dope.
That's fucking awesome.
Good shit. Good shit. I see you. Oh well, Takami.
So, well, we made this really cool nation. Who are these barbaric, horrible monsters? But they're morally upright, so it's okay.
They're just trying to survive, okay? Like, they were abandoned. They're just trying to survive.
The Starship Trooper meme continues with they're weirdly progressive for a bunch of autocrats, aren't they?
Well, think we made an absolutely wonderful thing, and we are at the 2.5 hour mark. So if we want to do outros and find a place to raid into, we'll start with Ajax, of course. Thank you for joining us, of course, Ajax.
Awesome. I'm so happy that we got to do this. Like, this has been so much fun. So thank you so much for having me, first of all.
Thank you.
But for the outro, I am that gamer Ajax. You can find me on most socials with that username. Just look for the one that actually has this face and not potentially some other bot that I can't get rid of for some reason. Because Twitter's great sometimes. But you can find me on Twitter. YouTube is like the big thing that I've really been pushing for. I'm also on TikTok. I am on Tumblr. I'm not very active on there, but it is the same username for all of those. Again, if you missed at the beginning, I do tips, tricks, guides for all kinds of tabletop games. Right now, my obsession has been Cyberpunk Red, and then I'm going to probably be shifting over to Lancer in the near future if I don't do the Alien RPG, because I had a lot of fun with that one as well.
Absolutely love Lancer and Cyberpunk Red, and I've yet to try Alien, but that is one people keep recommending to me.
It's so good, you'll love it.
Just like top tier choices right there. That's like a tier list of all the cool stuff in TTRPG right now.
All of my favorite games I've played. Yeah, isn't that fucking awesome?
And I am reading through Coyote and Crow because I got that for Christmas gift.
Nice. So, okay, cool.
So I'll probably be doing first impressions on that eventually.
Right on, man. Like Ajax said here, folks, you can find him on Twitter. I'm going to pull up his link real quick so y'all can just go and follow him, because he has a critically low amount of followers for how awesome of a dude he is. I'm just saying.
Yeah, 100% agree.
Thank you.
Bam.
Oh.
Got it.
You got it? Okay. Yeah,
I already had you open. Yeah, no.
Damn. Oh, man, it's quick as fuck. Yeah, all right. Man, 3 steps ahead of me. Well, so Omni, introduce yourself, please.
Thank you, man. Hello, everyone. I'm the Last Omnitech, your favorite robot American, and I'd like to thank you guys as always for tuning in. You guys can catch me on my channel, twitch.tv/TheLastOmnitech, all one word. You can see the same thing goes for me on my Twitter. It's twitter.com/TheLastOmnitech. The handle's the same everywhere, except for Xbox Live. I can't fit it there. But then I'm just Last Omnitech. So you guys can catch me all over the place. I do world building. I do a lot of various creative actions. Right now, I'm currently in the middle of developing my own TTRPG setting known as Legacy Storytelling World Tomorrow. I'm actually going to be running 2 games of it, one on my channel, which will be on Wednesdays, and one on Saturdays on DMDM Studios. I'm also getting ready to launch a D&D 5th Ed Spelljammer setting in my own custom setting known as Atanria. So keep an eye out for that. Bunch of airships. It's going to be really fun. Airships and madness and shards of Alara meet all in the middle with higher piracy and adventure. And I'm super excited for what some of the folks are doing. I literally, within 5 minutes, I have Yuan-Ti spells like Spellblade. I don't know what else to tell you. It's going to be an absolute madness, and I'm looking forward to it. Other than that, just keep an eye out, as I also currently am doing the Stellar Forge every Saturday, where I do world building, which is largely art focused and also lore and setting focused from Legacy, but other projects I work on. Wednesdays, I do the, we're back to it, the Rule Smithy, where I'm just cramming out rules. I got a whole book to write in less than a month. Pray for me. And then Thursdays, when I finally get my Xbox reconnected, we'll be opening back up to do the Breakfast Club. And I'll be doing Breakfast Club shorts over the course of the week. But that's me. Thank you so much as always, Red, my friend. I give it to you.
Thank you, man. Thank both of you guys. You guys have obviously been great. We came up with a really cool new nation, and these guys are badass as hell, and I really want to just play a sword sight and run a campaign with them. But yeah, so folks, I've been Red. I'm one of the 3 primary colors. You know who I am if you're here, probably. If you don't, refer to my Twitter at VA Redemption. Post a lot of shit, post a lot of stuff that I'm working on. I'm in the process of editing my 2nd novel. Boy, I hate editing. But it needs to be done. So big announcements are Sunday of next week at 6:30 p.m. CST, I believe, will be the first episode of The Blind Eternities, which is going to be a D&D 5th edition mixed with Magic the Gathering campaign, where the players are planeswalkers. So I'm very excited to throw them into the War of the Spark. because that's the first time they're gonna planeswalk. Well, some of them. I'll have to talk with it. Yeah, he's got the Omni's playing a literal mirror, just by the way, in case you like get mirrored and stuff. But yeah, I'd appreciate if you guys are there. Also, I'm holding a giveaway right now. It's pinned, and I will be announcing the winner of the giveaway in the middle of that stream. And I would appreciate it if you showed up and just hung out, maybe even just a lurk. And like I said, I'll announce the winner of that giveaway, which this giveaway is for one of the 2 Commander Precon decks that came out with the Brothers War set. So you get either Mishra or Urza. And if you choose Mishra, I'm going to roll another person for you to. I'm going to roll another person to see who wins. But no, so, it's your choice. It's entirely your choice. I'm just giving you shit, Skag. But other than that, I think we can just raid in. Keep up with me, folks. I'm going to be live. We're going to be live again with Writer's Block on next Monday, of course. And that'll be, what, the 9th? Yeah, the 9th.
Yes, the 9th.
We're going to be live with Fleet Detrick. If you don't know who Fleet Detrick is, be sure to check them out on Twitter. I am just getting introduced to them, and they seem very cool, and I want to work with them and give them a platform to show off their world building skills. So check them out right here. We're going to be live with them same time next week. So peace out, folks. Much love, and I appreciate your support. I'll catch you real soon. Maybe tomorrow. We'll see.